472-8950 or go to 560theanswer.com/food for the poor. That website again, 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
Everyone is watching major movements ripple through the markets these days, sparked by new policy shifts out of Washington and activity from the Federal Reserve. Americans have faced uncertainty before, and every time we've found our footing again. The real secret to long-term financial peace is simple. Keep your eyes on the horizon and understand the fundamentals that drive real stability. That's exactly why Advantage Gold is inviting you to call 800-741-GOLD right now. We'll send you a free Gold IRA rollover kit, along with a complimentary copy of economist Ken Rogoff's insightful book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Inside, you'll learn how to defend your retirement savings against inflation, market swings, and reckless fiscal policies with tangible assets like precious metals that have preserved wealth for centuries. It's no wonder Advantage Gold has been America's #1 gold company for the past decade. Take a smart step toward protecting what you've earned. Call 800-741-GOLD. That's 800-741-4653. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-741-GOLD.
If you're looking to purchase a loved one's home after they passed away, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Pam wanted to purchase her grandmother's $400,000 home after she passed away, which was left to Pam's father, Ted, and her Aunt Betty. Ted listens to my show and wanted to forego his half of the equity of his mom's home and sell Pam the home for $200,000. Bad move. I recommended Pam purchase the home for $400,000 and get a gift of equity from her father, Ted, for $200,000, which enabled Pam to purchase the home with a lower rate and no money out of her pocket. Let's review. I helped Pam purchase her grandmother's home without having to bring a penny to the closing and secure a lower rate. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That's 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, MLS 112-4061.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be cold with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a light dusting to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and walkways, potentially impacting travel. The high temperature will reach 29. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Hope everybody had a lovely, festive Thanksgiving. And welcome you back to our little program here. By the way, the Bloody Mary deviled eggs that I touted on Wednesday last week lived up to expectations. You'll be happy to know. Maybe if I could get the recipe, I'll share it for your own personal enjoyment for those culinaries in our listening audience. Of course, the big news over the weekend was unfortunate news, and that was the targeted assassination attempts on 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., just a stone's throw from the White House. Sarah Beckstrom, one of the 2 National Guardsmen, succumbed to her injuries over the weekend. Andrew Wolf, the other National Guardsman who was shot by this Afghan asylum grantee, is still fighting for his life. Last update that I saw in terms of his condition. President Trump marked that horrific incident on Wednesday with essentially a video that was a de facto national address about the shootings.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. The hearts of all Americans tonight are with those 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard and their families. The love of our entire country is pouring out for them, and we are lifting them up in our prayers. As we are filled with anguish and grief for those who were shot, we're also filled with righteous anger and ferocious resolve. As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price.
Another National Guardsman took down the assassin. That's really what it was. This was a targeted killing. I mean, that's an assassination, looking to kill as many people in uniform as he could, apparently. Then the president had the gruesome task of having to make this announcement the next day on Thanksgiving.
Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. Her parents are with her. It's just happened. She was savagely attacked. She's dead. She's not with us. Incredible person. Outstanding in every single way, in every department. This horrible.
And the policy reaction was DHS, Department of Homeland Security, announcing it would stop processing immigration requests for Afghan nationals pending a review of security protocols, and that all Biden-era asylum cases would be scrutinized. Trump also directed a sweeping review of green card holders from 19 countries of concern. And so, in part, that was the discussion that dominated the Sunday talkies. If you re-engaged after your turkey and stuffing hangover, because, of course, this has reignited the debate over what exactly our immigration policy should look like, particularly as it relates to asylum seekers, and particularly as it relates to asylum seekers from countries of concern, countries that are incubators of American hatred, of Islamist terrorism. In addition to that, it brings in the questions about vetting. Number one, what was the Biden-era vetting really when it came to these nearly 80,000 individuals that were granted asylum, sort of expedited asylum, categorical asylum, as essentially America keeping its promise to those who aided and supported American boots on the ground during the war in Afghanistan. What were those vetting processes? Were they properly executed? Is it possible to vet asylum seekers from third world countries like Afghanistan? And I mean, that's really the predicate question, because if it's not, then how do we grant asylum to anyone from a particular country? And then that brings in a 1965 law about quotas with respect to national origin and so on and so forth. But I mean, this is not about a particular nationality. This is about the quality of record keeping and the ability to vet asylum seekers. So that predicate question has to be answered. And then, okay, if it is, given enough scrutiny, enough rigor in the process, then what does that look like? And how does that compare to what is or is not happening at present? Because I know a lot of time was spent placing the blame on the big guy and the previous regime, and there's a lot of blame to place there. But it also is worth noting, and this was addressed by Kristi Noem over the weekend on Meet the Press yesterday, in fact, that it was in April that the individual who will be charged with the murder of Sarah Beckstrom and the attempted murder right now of Andrew Wolf, his asylum application was approved in April by the Trump administration. So the review is ongoing, but perhaps there should have been a little bit more proactivity, particularly because Trump, to his credit, in a 2021 interview with Cheryl Atkinson, had this to say about the prospect of categorical granting of asylum to Afghans.
And nobody knows who the hell they are, Cheryl. These aren't the interpreters that we taught. These were people that rushed into the planes, and they were so interested in trying to make it sound like, oh, they're doing a good job. These people, many of these people are going to be terrorists, okay? They're going to be terrorists. They were very powerful. They were very energetic in getting onto the aircraft.
They say they're vetting them very carefully with biometrics and documentation.
They're not doing that, and you can't, because there is no documentation in that country.
Right. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line and text line. This was also an exchange back in July of 2023 between Tom Tiffany, a Republican congressman from Wisconsin, and the former DHS Secretary, Ali Mayorkas, perhaps the worst cabinet official in the history of our country. Ali Mayorkas on Operation Allies Welcome, this provision of asylum allegedly for Afghans who helped American troops on the ground during the war in Afghanistan. And, and that is not an illegitimate thing. I don't want to discard that. We'll address it. But I want to focus on this for a second. Tom Tiffany, Republican congressman from Wisconsin. He is running for governor up there this cycle. This was the back and forth that he had with Mayorkas in July of 2023 on this exact issue of the quality of the vetting. Are you sure? Do we know for certain?
There were 70,192 Afghans that were brought into the United States. They were brought here on parole for 2 years. Will you be reviewing each individual status on a case-by-case basis as this expiration happens?
Congressman, you're referring to what we termed Operation Allies Welcome, a program that we are very proud of, that we instituted to provide refuge for individuals, many of whom...
Will you be reviewing those they came in on parole, will you be reviewing them on a case-by-case basis?
We reviewed them on a case-by-case basis, and when those parole periods are subject to renewal, we will do so.
The commander down at Fort McCoy in my state, when I interviewed him 2 years ago, he said they were not interviewed on a case-by-case basis. In fact, in the terror hotbed of the world, Afghanistan, which should have a special immigrant visa process, previous administration used that to make sure to fully vet. Not one of those people that came in from Afghanistan were sent through the special immigrant visa process. They were simply given parole. Do you know how much damage was done to Fort McCoy during that period when those 12,000 plus Afghans came in?
Congressman, the individuals who were benefited from Operation Allies Welcome were indeed screened and vetted by government personnel.
They were brought in categorical parole, Mr. Chairman. There was $145.6 million of damage that was done to Fort McCoy. Did you realize that?
Congressman, we're very
The place was
proud.
virtually destroyed.
Yeah, the full accounting of everyone who was brought in, what that vetting process looked like, were there check-ins? Christine Ohm over the weekend saying with respect to asylum grantees, they're supposed to check in on an annualized basis for essentially status review of their asylum designation. Was that happening? There's a lot of problems here, unsurprisingly, with everything we know about how immigration law is or is not enforced. And also what we know about the managerial set in charge of so much of our lives and our physical security and their level of competence. This sort of, we do everything together so no one is individually held responsible. We have these processes, and then you never sort of get the full delineation of, okay, so run me through case by case of the process. Was it adhered to? Run me through whether or not this process is sufficient when we have people, many people, a small percentage, but a small percentage, a big number, many, many people who did not come to America to do good, to build a better life for themselves. They came, or subsequent to their arrival, became radicalized like this individual did, and that was according to Noam as well, that he was radicalized here. Corey Woodlawn, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Happy holidays, Dan. I think we need to terminate all processes into this country unless they share our values. How many more of these situations do we have to withstand so we can understand that these individuals aren't here to do us good? A small percentage of them may want to become Americans, but I think we're seeing a large percentage of them are here to do harm. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Corey. Jim LaGrange.
Yeah, Dan, common sense. It was thrown out the window. The only people that should have been able to come into the country that were properly vetted were those that actually helped us, like interpreters and their immediate families. Otherwise, as anybody in law enforcement knows, there's no track record. There's no record of these other people that you can where you can vet them properly to ensure that they're good people who are going to be coming into our country and not do harm to us. And by the way, then there's the cases of the interpreters who couldn't get into our country. Like, none of this made sense. The good guys didn't get in and the bad guys did. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Jim. Well, right. I mean, that I remember talking about it when it came out. That was the story that was rooted in reality behind the movie The Covenant, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, but getting his Afghan interpreter who saved his life in Afghanistan to this country. So, right, we talked about that with the botched pullout, and you had Americans still on the ground, you had Afghan allies still on the ground, and I expressed concern for both. We made a promise to people, and they helped our men and women in uniform, and they saved lives of American soldiers. Then, of course, we should keep the promises. But in classic Biden fashion and basically federal government fashion, you have a meatball Sunday of asylum seekers that were not deserving of asylum, clearly, getting asylum, and asylum seekers that we made a promise to who did have a track record, not getting asylum, being left behind, and so on and so forth. Well, the whole vetting thing, though, now, just Jim brings up the point about, working with, so you had a track record. Well, of course, the shooter, the man who shot these two National Guardsmen on Wednesday, was a member of one of the 0 units in Afghanistan. So he did have a track record of being vetted by and working with the CIA over there. And we'll discuss that and fold in Tom Homan's view on migration and asylum seekers from third world countries at 5:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Travelers at the end of the Thanksgiving holiday were finding hundreds of flights delayed and canceled in Chicago yesterday following a winter storm that blanketed the Midwest, while a wintry mix of rain and snow developed in the Northeast. On Saturday, nearly 8.5 inches of snow fell at Chicago O'Hare's International Airport, and that sets a record for the highest single calendar day snowfall in November at the airport. Officials with the FAA say departures to O'Hare were delayed on average by nearly an hour due to snow or ice, and that departures from the airport were delayed an average of 15 minutes, and that was increasing due to the weather. Officials are investigating the cause of a fire in a Bronzeville area high-rise apartment. According to officials, that fire broke out yesterday morning in a fifth-floor unit at the Luther Terrace Apartments. The blaze was reported to be under control by 8:30 in the morning, and there are no reports of injuries. This report is sponsored by AutoZone. Get in the zone. Starting Stronger starts at AutoZone, where they've got battery solutions in the form of free battery testing, free battery charging, and replacement batteries that fit your needs. And that's what makes them America's #1 battery destination. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next minute.
Mike Gallagher sees hope of less tension.
Trump meets Mamdani in the Oval Office, and you'd have thought they were just a couple of bros. I expected it to go badly. On the other hand, I kind of liked that it didn't. There's a part of me that says if you really are serious about lowering the temperature, the political rhetoric and the temperature in America, well, this was a giant step in that direction, was it not?
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9 on AM 560. The Answer.
So Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data on a crazy fast 5G network for just $29.95 a month for life. Not your phone's life, your life. This top-tier plan is normally $65 a month, but if you switch today, you'll save over 50% every month for the rest of your life. You might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Just dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. Offer expires 12/7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com.
This is the time of the year most of us are checking off our holiday gift list. Identity thieves have lists too, and your personal information might be on that list. Protect your identity with LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every single second and alerts you to the threats you could miss yourself. If your identity is stolen, your own U.S.-based restoration specialist is going to work to fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Make this season about joy, not identity theft, with LifeLock. Save up to 40% off your first year at LifeLock.com with the promo code BECK. Terms apply.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by extending their wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows for only $14.98. It gets even better. Upgrade to a queen-size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more, or multi-use pillows for only $9.98. Get body pillows for $29.98 with a free pillowcase. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including the standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98. Kings only $1 more. That's 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. Order $100 or more and your order ships absolutely free. We know MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but MyPillow has just announced that they are extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026.
Check off the wish list with instant savings and free battery offers on select Steel tools. Shop online or in store.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be cold with plenty of clouds leading to a coating to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and sidewalks impacting travel. Expect a high of 29. Tonight, anticipate on and off snow and flurries in the evening, adding up to a coating to an inch of accumulation. Otherwise, it will remain cloudy and cold with a total snowfall of 1 to 3 inches from the storm. The low will be 17. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, talking about, of course, the murder of a National Guardsman over the holiday weekend and the attempted murder of another one. Hopefully Andrew Wolf survived. Sarah Beckstrom did not. And this has opened up and reignited a discussion about immigration policy, particularly as it pertains to asylum seekers. But really, it's broader than that. And it starts with, what is our real capacity to vet people seeking to emigrate or seeking asylum in this country, particularly from the third world? Well, here's what Border Security Czar Tom Homan had to say about that.
People need to understand, during the 4 years to Biden, I was on Fox News every day saying, it's the biggest national security failure in the history of the nation, and we're going to pay the price. Because even though Secretary Mayorkas says everybody's properly vetted, they weren't. Even his own DHS Inspector General came out with a report and said there's multiple failures in the vetting process. And here's what people need to understand. In these third world nations, they don't have systems like we do. So a lot of these Afghanistans, when they did get here and get vetted, they had no identification at all. Not a single travel document, not one piece of identification. And we're going to count on the people that run Afghanistan, the Taliban, to provide us any information who the bad guys were or who the good guys are? Certainly not. And many people need to understand that most terrorists in this world, most of them, aren't in any database. Because unless they were found on a battlefield by DOD and did a retina scan and did into biometrics there, unless you're part of a T3 undercover investigation, we don't know who they are. So, and the same thing with illegal aliens, that over 10 million that came across the border in Joe Biden. There's no way to vet these people. You think El Salvador or Turkey or Sudan or any of these countries have the databases or system checks that we have? Do you think the government of China, Russia, Turkey, you think they're going to share that data with us even if they did have it? There's no way to clearly vet these people, 100% that they're safe to come in this country from these third world nations. President Trump's doing the right thing, reviewing every one of these people that came under the Biden administration and drilling down on them. I really, truly think that most of them are going to end up being deported because we're not going to be able to properly vet them.
Well, and also to vet and, as I said, the annual check-in, vetting and revisiting. And I say that because, again, Kristi Noem offered this on Meet the Press yesterday.
And afterwards, it is worth noting Citizenship and Immigration Services, an agency which is a part of DHS, approved the suspect's asylum application in April of this year. Why did the Trump administration grant the suspect asylum in April? Did you know then that he was moving toward radicalization?
Well, Kristen, you need to remember that when this abandonment of Afghanistan happened, the Biden administration put people on airplanes, brought them to the United States without vetting them. They brought them into our country and then said they would vet them afterwards. And then at that time, to do a good job of vetting people, you need to have cooperation of that government that is from their country. You have to have a stable government that will give you information, contacts, background information, and biometrics that you may need to identify that individual, their dates of service. All of that vetting information was collected by Joe Biden's administration that was used and in the process. So President Trump, thankfully, has completely changed that. We are now using all social media content. We're going after what they have been doing with their contacts, their biometric data information we are collecting. Now, when we vet individuals under this administration, we know who they are, why they are here, and going through that. Unfortunately, this individual, that entire process happened under Joe Biden's watch.
Yeah, okay, well, that entire process happened under his watch, but then she went on to say there's annual check-ins, and again, it was still, the asylum application was approved under Trump in April. So how are these new protocols working? I mean, I get, so we're looking at Facebook and we're looking at other things, sort of to try to get a three-dimensional picture of the individual for vetting as a permanent resident or possibly someday a United States citizen. So how is that different? Why, if you know that about the Biden administration and what they didn't do versus what they claim to have done, then why are you rubber stamping asylum applications? Because, again, you said, Noem, he was radicalized here. So what happened? I know we don't have the full picture yet, or at least not, it hasn't been disclosed. But this is a guy living in a $2,000 a month, a modest apartment, $2,000 a month in Washington State, working as a contract worker for Amazon. He's got a wife and 5 kids. And one day he decides to drive across country to open fire on National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. And, of course, as you might expect, in a small leftist enclave in Washington State, Bellingham, I believe it was, the neighbors are shocked. Very quiet, no evidence. But there's got to be evidence somewhere. Kristi Noem made note that there are people within that community in which he was resettled, and a number of Afghan asylum seekers were resettled in this community in Washington State. There was a network there. She sort of implied there was a network there. There's, some element there that was part of this individual's radicalization. Well, so then what's the new protocol that checks in with them after they're here for a couple, 3 years? If you're looking on social media posts, I don't know, does anything bubble up on this guy? I mean, that's the question, and this is fundamentally the problem. And if you're going to allow for people to emigrate to this country, if you're going to allow people to seek asylum here, which I think we should. I know it's never going to be 100%, but you have to explain what you're doing different than what the previous guy did, besides the southern border and deporting people that are threats to public safety. I mean, I guess my point is this. Look, this was not an unknown. The New York Post reported over the weekend there were some 5,000 Afghan nationals flagged as national security threats. And again, 5,000 out of 70,000, but since Biden's presidency, New York Post, 6,868 people came to the United States under the Operation Allies program were linked to, quote, potential derogatory information, according to the New York Post. Of those 6,868, 5,005 with national security concerns, 956 public safety concerns, 876 for fraud. That information was revealed to Chuck Grassley in May 2024 after he sent a number of questions to the Department of Homeland Security at the time. So that's 18 months ago. Although many of the flags on the various nationals were received, there are still 885 people on the list that may pose a national security concern, according to the New York Post. So again, I mean, this, the buck stops with who's in charge. So for President Trump and Kristi Noem, they're taking action now, but there needs to be some accountability for that. This was a known thing. You're telling me things are so much different. Then why did you rubber stamp his asylum application that you say was based on phony baloney vetting or non-existent vetting, same thing, under the Biden administration? Let's take ownership of the whole thing. So you say, look, this is, a hot mess, as you know, and we have been, working as fast as we can to try and bring some semblance of sanity to it and get people out of this country who don't belong here because they pose a public safety threat. And are even if they're here technically illegally, that asylum designation can be rescinded if you pose a national security threat, obviously. In addition to, of course, what they're doing with people here legally. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Again, because Trump and Vance, too, were sort of on this right from the start. J.D. Vance, in August of 2021, sort of taking a shot across the bow of then Republican Senator from Nebraska, Ben Sasse, about this refugee program. Again, it's one of those things that sounds right and proper in the abstract. Should we provide safe haven for people that helped American troops on the ground in Afghanistan and are now going to be targeted for death by the Taliban once they reassume control, as we knew they were going to? Just not as fast as they otherwise would have were it not for Biden's bungling. But should we do that? Yes, we should do that. But, the devil is in the details. The devil is in the execution of this. And what happened, per Trump's interview that I just played, a portion of it, with Sharyl Attkisson in 2021, is pretty much what Trump said. It was just sort of mob action. Whoever can get on planes and we can otherwise get out, and just come over here. And this is Biden administration, and Biden administration just found pockets of America to resettle people without any particular vetting, despite what they said clearly. There's one more aspect to this vetting thing, because it really goes like this is where don't give me pieties and generalizations and, and sort of one-dimensional attacks on the Biden administration. Yeah, we got the drop on that guy. Got it. That's fine for context, but now give us the more fulsome answer of what you inherited, what you've done, and what you're going to do, and what it's going to produce. That's your responsibility now with the reins of power. But Chad Robichaux who was a Marine in Afghanistan and worked with a lot of the Afghans who were aiding American soldiers. He made a really good point. First of all, he like Trump, like Vance, knew this was going to be a problem. Oh, I skipped over Vance. Well, here's Vance on the same sort of wavelength as Trump back in 2021.
I see that Senator Ben Sasse went on national TV yesterday and attacked me for suggesting we should focus on getting our own citizens out of Afghanistan rather than the Afghan refugees. And he said great countries honor their word. Of course, nobody disagrees with that. It's a ridiculous platitude. The question is not whether we honor our word. The question is who have we made promises to? Who do we owe an obligation toward? And to any leader of this country, the obvious answer should be American citizens. So let's focus first on getting them out of Afghanistan before we say another word about the Afghan refugees. Now, Senator Sasse also said that he would welcome the Afghan refugees to his neighborhood with open arms. That's very sweet of him. I'm sure a lot of liberals will say very nice things about him because he said that. But the question is not whether we help the Afghan refugees. The question is, first, how do we do it? And second, how do we do it in a way that doesn't destroy our own sovereignty? So let's have an honest question about what exists in Afghanistan. According to Pew, 40% of the people there believe that blowing yourself up, committing a suicide bombing, is an acceptable way to solve a problem. So yes, let's help the Afghans who helped us, but let's ensure that we're properly vetting them so that we don't get a bunch of people who believe they should blow themselves up at a mall because somebody looked at their wife the wrong way. That is not real leadership. Real leadership is accepting the trade-offs of the situation, putting our own citizens first, and not dealing with fake platitudes because it gets people in the media to say nice things about you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's well said. And like I said, Trump and Vance both unfortunately proved to be prescient. Unfortunately, I say, because you have a National Guardsman who was murdered and one fighting for his life. Chad Robichaud, I want to get to him too, and then we'll take some calls. A Marine who served in Afghanistan. Also knew it was going to be a problem. You know, here's another thing too. Maybe you listen to some of the guys on the ground, on our, Americans on the ground. And I'm not talking about the politicians with, all the medals on their chests. I'm talking about guys on the ground that were actually in theater and working with people from Afghanistan and perhaps could provide real insight into who's legit to provide asylum for in this country as opposed to who is a mercenary who I wouldn't trust except for this limited mission of our common enemy, the Taliban. There's a difference there. And he makes that point on vetting.
When I was in Afghanistan, I was a DoD contractor on a JSOC task force, and we had CIA-trained Afghans working with us. We had JSOC-trained Afghans working with us. We vetted them to work for us as combatants. And there's a big difference when the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right. They're great to work in, and it doesn't mean they wouldn't eventually be a good American, but the criteria of them working as a combatant doesn't qualify them to integrate in our society. There's a separate process for that, and that's the State Department's responsibility to do that. That's why when we got people like my interpreter, Aziz, out of Afghanistan, he had to go to UAE and wait 9 months for the State Department to do their due diligence process to make sure they were safe to come to America. And, Aziz is my friend. He's here.
Right. That's a really important point, seems to me. Something else, too, about this vetting and how difficult it is. And so I'm not saying this is easy. Tom Homan says it's virtually impossible. On a case-by-case basis, like with Chad Robichaud vouching for his interpreter and then going through a process and so on and so forth with the State Department. But just remember this, too, for, those sort of sentimental, open borders leftists. It was the sainted Jim Comey, you'll recall. At the end of Biden, that works. Biden term 2, not term 3, before Trump won. It was the Saint Jim Comey who, with the prospect of Syrian refugees being provided asylum in this country, as Assad ignored Obama's red line and was purging his regime's opponents, you recall? And then, Obama drew a red line with, his press release politics, then quickly erased it. exacerbating the problems there, as was his wont. Jim Comey said, look, we can't vet these people. There's no paperwork. He said exactly what you're hearing from Tom Homan and others. We can't really vet these people. Jim Comey saying that about the prospect the FBI was going to be involved in vetting Syrian refugees at the end of the Obama administration. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line. Margot Burridge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to sound like a libertarian, but do not, I really want to know this, do not EBT cards, Section 8 housing or luxury hotels, Medicaid, Obama phone, don't all those things require providing an address? Not to mention the Somalians in Ilhan Omar's district who got away with $146 million in grants for their autistic children. These things seem that they would all need to have addresses where you deliver this largesse to them. And how about the cars provided to the Haitians that were imported to Springfield, Ohio? Where did that money come from, and didn't they have to provide addresses? And if you own a car and the car is registered to you got to have an address for that. So we know where these people are. Why can't we go find them and determine whether they're going to be good Americans or not? And the other thing, of course, is voting. Do they not have to give an address if they're going to be voting? I think they do. So, all of these things, it's a mystery to me why we can't go find these people immediately. We can put a man on the moon. Why can't we find them, interview them, see if they're good or bad, and get them out of here? I don't know why we have to chase down people at Home Depot who are looking for a job. These are the people who are really sponging off the system. And they're probably where your terrorists are, too, because they're busy planning their next terror thing. They're not working, like this guy that we're talking about that shot the 2 National Guardsmen. And can I just finish with a quote from, pretty close quote from James Madison? I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article of the Constitution which grants to Congress to bestow upon objects of benevolence the money of its constituents. He was talking about French Huguenots that were applying for asylum. $15,000 they wanted to bring these French Huguenots over here, and it was turned down by Congress because Congress did not have the right to take our money and give it to others, objects of benevolence. So,
thanks
anyway.
for the call, Margot. Well said. Appreciate that. Lewis, Brenham, Texas.
Hey, good morning, Dan. We had a couple of interpreters who we made it back to the States with us, and a couple families that helped us out over there. But the problem is we have a lot of these Afghans who would give us certain information that was spotty and kind of sprinkled sugar on bullcrap, just good enough where they can do just enough to kind of get to the States. And I think that's the problem that they're having over there now. And, they're not, like you said before, they're not vetting them properly, and they're not doing the job because they gave just enough information to make it look like they were helping, when in actuality their allegiances kind of blow with the wind.
You served in Afghanistan?
Iraq and Afghanistan.
And what branch of the military?
Marine Corps, sir.
And so Lewis, the Marine from Brown, Texas. So, and you worked with, did you work with these so-called zero units?
No, not directly. No, but like I said, we did have we worked directly with interpreters, and we worked with civilians out as we were walking around gathering information. And a lot of these people are good people. I mean, I don't want to take any, right. People thinking, they helped us a lot, and they were actually very supportive of what we were doing for them. And, the unfortunate part is it's like we have here in the States. You have a lot of people who know that they can take advantage of Americans, and that, a lot of us are kind-hearted, and we're going to do things to kind of help people out. So they prey upon that weakness that we have, and they embed themselves with us. And, this is the type of things that happen that you're seeing.
Thanks so much, Lewis. Appreciate your service, first and foremost, and your perspective. Very helpful. All right, we'll continue this conversation at 6:06. There was much more to fold in, including some of the reaction from the left, of course. It is now 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND, Chicago.
More talks in Moscow. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
I think that
there's a good chance we can make a deal.
President Trump's optimistic as his special envoy Steve Witkoff goes to Russia today to keep negotiating U.S. brokered peace plan that Secretary of State Marco Rubio talked to Ukrainian officials about again over the weekend in Florida, saying this is more than stopping Russia's war.
It's not just about the terms that ends fighting. It's about also the terms that set up Ukraine for long-term prosperity.
Back on to the president on Air Force One, flying back to Washington. He also told reporters he had a phone call with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, but wouldn't give details as the U.S. military operation continues off the coast, targeting boats trafficking illegal drugs. The president also reacted to a report the U.S. carried out a second strike on one boat, killing 2 survivors of the first bombing. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth denies that, and the president backs him.
You can see the boats. You can see the drugs in the boats.
Some lawmakers in Congress want more answers, with some suggesting a war crime might have been committed. President Trump's invited the families of the 2 National Guard members attacked last week while on patrol in Washington to the White House.
The one is no longer with us, and Andrew is fighting for his life.
Andrew Wolf still in critical condition. Sarah Beckstrom died after being shot last Wednesday afternoon. The president says he's told her parents and his to come see him when they can.
The only thing I can say, they were devastated.
They were deployed with the West Virginia National Guard as part of President Trump's crime-fighting mission in Washington, D.C. and other cities.
That's Fox's Chris Foster. The suspected gunman facing murder and other charges is Ramanullah Lakhanwal, an Afghan national who fought with the U.S. during the war and came here after the American withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem questions his vetting process and tells ABC's This Week.
Since he's been here, we believe he could have been radicalized in his home community and in his home state.
He's from Washington State. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. A ground stop was in effect at Chicago's Midway Airport last night after a Southwest jet slid off the runway and into the grass. Flights were halted for about an hour and a half while crews worked to clear the field. There were no injuries reported. That incident was the second time a jet had slid off a runway over the weekend. On Saturday, a Delta Airlines jet slid from the runway into the taxiway in Detroit due to the snowy and icy conditions. Today is the day Chicago's winter overnight parking ban goes into effect. From now until April 1st, overnight parking is banned between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., 7 days a week on the city's main streets. Signs are posted in the areas that the ban is in effect. Officials say the ban is necessary to make way for snowplows, buses, and emergency vehicles during the winter months. Officials are investigating the cause of a fire in a Bronzeville area high-rise apartment. According to officials, that fire broke out yesterday morning in the 5th floor unit of the Luther Terrace Apartments. The blaze was reported to be under control by about 8:30. There were no reports of any injuries. And a Democratic state senator is looking to require more transparency for how local governments in Illinois use taxpayer-funded credit cards. Greg Bishop has the story.
Chicago Heights State Representative Anthony DeLuca said his measure is simple.
The unit of government would have to specifically and separately approve and vote on an itemized credit card statement from the previous month's expenditures. So really all it's doing is creating more transparency.
This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Larry Elder sees another paranoia.
There was a CNN report about the 2020 election. Their politics editor, Chris Cillizza, said 76% of the self-identified Republicans believe there was widespread fraud. However, 78% of Democrats feel the same way about the election that Trump won. But nobody calls them election deniers.
The Larry Elder Show, weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit AlmostFreeTeeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
Dan Proft here to tell you about our 2025 Food for the Poor campaign. If you've listened to the station and to our show for any length of time, then you already know about Food for the Poor. They are a nonprofit, faith-based organization that provides food, water, medicine, clothing, and life-saving supplies directly to local partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. We all know about how bad the situation is in Latin America and the Caribbean right now. Economic decline, political instability and corruption, and high food prices. The only thing standing between these families and starvation is Food for the Poor and their partners who are providing life-saving food relief on the ground. But in order to get food and water to those who need it most, Food for the Poor needs your help. Your gift of just $150 can provide food and water for 2 children for an entire year. For a gift of $300, you can provide food and water for 4 children for an entire year. To make a gift of any amount, just call 844-862-4673. That's 844-862-4673. Or visit 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
Just how good is Pure Talk's current deal for unlimited wireless? Well, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Because right now, for just $29.95 a month, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for life. Not your phone's life, your life. This is Pure Talk's top-tier plan. It comes with a crazy fast 5G network along with a 30-gig hotspot. And at just $29.95 a month, there has never been a better opportunity to lock in a ridiculously low rate for as long as you live. And save thousands and thousands of dollars along the way. This plan is normally $65 a month, but if you switch today, you will save over 50% every single month for the rest of your life. See what I mean? It really is the deal of your lifetime. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. Offer ends 12/7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
He was in denial.
And when I got those letters from the IRS, you wanted to act like they didn't exist.
Finally, Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima got me a settlement with the IRS. These people are really people-friendly. It was every bit of a new lease on life for me.
The fast action and the great results made Dan's head spin.
I felt like I was in a dream, but it's real, and I have paperwork to prove it. They got the job done, and life is good.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation.
If you're worried about what's going to happen with the IRS, stop worrying. Make the call now.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in
From the Team
Chicago.
Hopper Traffic Center, you can definitely tell we are back to pre-holiday traffic patterns. Traffic is stacking up on the Dan Ryan Express lanes inbound between 33rd and Stevenson Expressway. There is an accident on the entrance ramp on the Kennedy inbound from Kimball Avenue. Vehicle is in a ditch reported on the entrance ramp there. Back the other way on the Kennedy outbound between 90 and Manheim, stop and go traffic. The Jane Addams bunching up eastbound between Higgins Road and the Tri-State Tollway. Expect about a 10-minute delay in the area. On the Ikes, traffic is stacking up if you're outbound between Harlem and Des Plaines. How about DuSable Lakeshore? Traffic is creeping along if you're northbound between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood. Travel time on the Edens this morning, 15 minutes if you're going inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose. If you're on the Stevenson, you'll cruise along for a 28-minute ride if you're inbound from 355 to DuSable Lakeshore. And the Tri-State Tollway southbound from the Wisconsin State line to the Bishop Ford, about a 72-minute drive. This report, a service of Fox Valley Coins, currently buying all gold and silver bars and coins, silver dollars, rare date proof, and mint sets. Visit foxvalleycoins.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now check out the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with plenty of clouds leading to a coating to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and sidewalks impacting travel. Expect a high of 29. Tonight, anticipate on and off snow and flurries in the evening, adding up to a coating to an inch of accumulation. Otherwise, it will remain cloudy and cold with a total snowfall of 1 to 3 inches from the storm. The low will be 17. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. We've been talking about the fallout from the shooting of the two National Guardsmen the day before Thanksgiving last week. Unfortunately, Sarah Beckstrom passed away, and Andrew Wolf is fighting for his life. And the discussion this has sparked over immigration policy, not just with respect to asylum seekers from Afghanistan who've been granted asylum, but the whole system, really. It's another illustration of the infirmities of the system, how we do legal immigration in this country and how we enforce illegal immigration. Just in terms of this being a case study so that lessons are learned, ideally. Michael Schellenberger had an interesting write-up on this. He talked to some intel officers who have experience in Afghanistan. The guardsman, the guy who shot the guardsman, clean on all checks, a senior U.S. official told CNN. The official said the U.S. government had been doing continuous annual vetting of individuals since the Afghans' arrival in the U.S., especially in the wake of the failed terror plot disrupted before the election last year in Oklahoma, which involved an Afghan evacuee. Right. But a senior intelligence official who talked to Schellenberger said something different. There wasn't adequate screening done. We don't have good fidelity with on who any of them are. We say, quote unquote, they're vetted, and he was vetted, meaning the suspect. That meant we thought he wouldn't turn his guns on us when we were paying him every month. And that worked for a decade with him. But the second we're not doing that anymore, the deal on their end changes. Some online have asked why the U.S. didn't return the evacuees and why they were brought to the U.S. in the first place. The average Trump voter is asking, didn't I vote to kick them out? I think that's fair. The person said they were told earlier this year upon entering the intel community, you don't know how bad it is regarding the government's inadequate screening of evacuees. I mentioned that's the essential formulation that was used. Since if there was no derogatory information on them, we flew them to the States with no long-term plan. But that's not even true because what I just said, of the 6,000 who were identified who are here. This official that spoke with Schellenberger went on to say, you're never supposed to bring your proxies home. They're mercenaries we hire for a very specific purpose. We can't bring large populations with a drastically different culture here. There was never a moment like, will these guys be good neighbors? It was, can I pay him enough to shoot the enemy and not me? So why did the U.S. government bring so many Afghans to the U.S. in the first place? Was there a better option for them? And what should happen to them now? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Was there a better option for them and what should happen to them now? I mean, it's a little bit tricky because, as you heard from Chad Robichaux, you heard from our friend Lewis in Brenham, Texas, both who were in theater and have experience here. And, you want people on the ground that helped you. You don't want to leave them behind. So it feels wrong to leave them behind at the mercy of the totalitarian Taliban. You know what's going to happen to them if you don't provide safe haven. Robichaux, the Marine, whose perspective I played before the break, saying, the interpreter that he helped get out, the guy that he worked with, first went to UAE, and then after 9 months of vetting, then was brought here and is here. So do we risk throwing out the baby with the bathwater, I guess, is the concern. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro line. Jen Psaki, when she was the White House spokeswoman before the Karine Jean-Pierre era, was asked about the vetting of the 70,000 plus Afghans who were going to be given categorical parole, come to this country. And she made assurances in 2021.
You've talked about this a little bit, others have as well, but there are, of course, concerns among lawmakers, experts who've tracked this. They're saying previous arrivals of large numbers of refugees from different parts of the world, inevitably there may be a small handful who are eventually deemed a security risk of some kind. What reassurances can you make about the screening process and the attempts to make sure that somebody like that doesn't make his or her way here?
I can absolutely assure you that no one is coming into the United States of America who has not been through a thorough screening and background check process. And there are many individuals, as you noted, who have not been through that process, and they have gone to lily pad countries as that process has been completed. It doesn't mean that that's because there's a flag. It means they have not completed their paperwork, and we were working to save tens of thousands of people. Hence, we evacuated them to these third countries.
Yeah, I mean, again, it sounds good, and then you have what happened on Wednesday happen. And as was mentioned in passing by Schellenberger, and then you have an Afghan teenager pleading guilty to taking part in a plot to carry out an Election Day attack in Oklahoma, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Sentenced for knowingly receiving and conspiring to receive a firearm and ammunition to be used in a terrorist attack. He will be removed from the United States after he's released from prison, hopefully, depending on who's president, I guess, when he's released. His co-defendant, 27 years old, also previously worked as a security guard for American military installation in Afghanistan. He pled guilty to conspiring and attempting to provide material support to the Islamic State terrorist group. He faces up to 35 years in prison. Bill, Northwest Side, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Yeah, Dan, one of the things I think we need to know is what exactly does that word mean, vetting? What's the checklist of questions that have to be answered? How do you gather that information? And why would you allow anyone from anywhere in the world into this country before they've been vetted? To be from anywhere, we need to know who's coming in here.
Thanks for the call, Bill. Tony, South Suburbs.
Yes, thank you, Dan, and good morning. Listen, Dan, I'm fine with. I'll defer with the baby in the bathwater analogy. All of them out, every last one of them, and start over with the right process, the process that's in place already. But they all need to go now, all of them, every last one of them.
Okay, thanks for the call, Tony. Bob, Buffalo Grove.
Good morning, Dan. Always good talking to you. It's kind of a side issue, but I'll date myself and go back to the 50s and 60s. Every January, the TV ran constant ads about green card holders needing to check in. Could or should we have a system where each year non-immigrants, non-citizens check in with the government?
Thanks for the call, Bob. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a sort of a larger conversation about what is feasible with the personnel that we have, what is desirable, and what additional personnel would that require. I don't know the answers to those questions. I think they're good questions. This is why I'm saying, the excoriating of Biden's incompetence, the Biden administration's incompetence, and actually malignity, I think, is also appropriate here. That only gets you so far. You were elected on the charge of bringing sanity to the system. And you've made great progress in that direction. I'm talking about the president. Made great progress in a number of fronts on that. But this is another whole area of policymaking that needs some thoughtful attention. I mean, when you say we're done taking, we're done essentially processing asylum applications for some indeterminate period of time, well, there has to be some approach taken to produce some resolution here that is applied. So what does that look like, and what's the horizon for that resolution? I mean, that's the charge here. You don't just say we're not. And I'm not saying they're doing this, but clearly that this has to be a big policy course correction, and the details are going to matter. Let's get a full audit and accounting of what we're doing with the asylum program. Fine. Let's think a little bit about what makes sense and what is feasible, and connect our desires up to our resources, and then let's present it for public consumption. And let's do it with all due speed. Craig, Mount Greenwood, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dan, and thank you for taking my call. Boy, but another point that I want to make, but you were asked a question earlier, it was rhetorical, about if the Biden's era system was working with vetting, working perfectly. Mayorkas, Soros, cut from the same cloth with regard to their care and love for this country, which is just the opposite. Okay. And then you stop and think what they did with the January 6 people, the FBI and all those agencies. There was thousands and thousands of them going after grandmas and everything that were in the Capitol and everything. That was all assets that should have been checking out Afghans and all kinds of other stuff that was really a danger to our country. But it's exactly like Soros and Mayorkas would have it. Go after the American citizens and Christians and so on, and let those damn terrorists come in and overrun our country. And they did it all when they were under the guise of January 6th. Thanks for the call, Craig. Well, I mean, again, you've got the kid sentenced to 15 years and the other guy facing 35 for this terrorist plot in Oklahoma. You've got a day before this awful shooting in D.C., you had an Afghan national arrested for posting a video of himself on TikTok indicating that he was making a bomb with the intention of targeting the Fort Worth area. He got flagged and picked up. And then, of course, the shooting in D.C. And the DHS report on the number of people with derogatory information. I mean, again, something else Kristi Noem said on Sunday on Meet the Press, you got a backlog of 1.5 million asylum applications that DHS is working through because of the, general lack of interest from Biden administration officials of, enforcing the law. Enforcing the law. Let the asylum applications pile up. We're processing asylum applications. We need more. We need more money for judges and the recalcitrant Republicans on the Hill and all their bull jive. The quote unquote chaos of the Trump administration is just more projection. What Trump has tried to do with people like Homan is bring some sense to the system. Hold on. We're not just going to continue doing things the way that we've been doing them. We have to bring some understanding to the system of who is here, why they're here, who poses a threat, how do we identify and remove people that pose a threat. Let's sort of reconfigure the system in a way that's consistent with the interests of the American people and their safety. And by the way, that also includes the safety of people who are here either illegally or in some sort of temporary protected status, like those Haitian migrants who were killed on that Florida Turnpike by the illegal Indian truck driver with the fraudulent CDL. I mean, that's the chaos.
The chaos is opening the borders and letting 10 million people run into the country and settle anywhere they want and do whatever they wanted when they did, where they did settle. That's chaos. And that's fine for Trump and his people to remind the American people of what the situation was and what they're trying to do. But it needs to be done sort of methodically and coolly, because passions run hot on this issue. Everybody understands it. And it's so easy to sidetrack any sort of intelligent conversation about this with the charges of racism. So this is great. These are great opportunity for demagogues to derail anything productive in this space. But we need cooler heads to prevail so we get to a more productive place with our immigration system. And instead we get, this sort of silliness from the left. You get the sentimentalism of Pete Wehner from The Atlantic.
Yeah, I'd say he reacted predictably and awfully. He predicted, as he is. This was sort of the Trump DNA kicking in. I should say first that I just find a kind of ghoulishness that happens when people die, tragedies in life, and the way that the people who die and the victims are turned into political pawns has always left me kind of disquieted. That's particularly the case here and now. But look, Trump is taking advantage. This is going back to the fever swamp from which he came. His first announcement when he for president in 2015, when he came down the golden escalator, was what? It was an attack on Mexicans, where he said they were drug dealers and criminals and rapists. Then during the campaign, he said that he was going to ban Muslims from coming into the country, and that united his base. So I think he's returning to form, but I think it's broader now. And in this case, with the Afghans that he's attacking, these are people who either helped the United States during the war or were targeted by the Taliban themselves. And this was an act of American decency and compassion. And to take that and turn it around and to go after these weak and vulnerable people and then broaden it to a wider attack on immigrants is a really ugly thing to say.
Yeah, that's the pathological empathy you're up against at the left. You see that on display all the time. I mean, just, point of order. Speaking of the lack of vetting at a very local level, it's the same thing. Venezuelan migrants robbed 3 women at gunpoint in Buena Park, prosecutors say. That's in Chicago. How many headlines of that, like that, have we poured over? Venezuelan migrants robbed 3 women at gunpoint. And what did you get from Chicago? Chicagoland. You got open letters from self-styled civic leaders, from former local news readers, decrying ICE. In addition to the never-ending stream of bull jive from Illinois' political ruling class led by JB and BJ. Remember that when you consume, and encourage those who are less enlightened than perhaps our listeners, encourage them to remember that when they consume the daily barrage of evidence as to whom they invited in, protected against law enforcement, and set upon the law-abiding. We've done that nationally. We did that nationally under Biden. And we've done that locally under JB and BJ. It's the same dynamic. Illinois being a microcosm of the country between 2021 and 2025. Larry in Elmhurst from Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dan. This is, I actually send them all back. I'm sick of seeing that crescent moon down Harlem Avenue in Bridgeview. Steve Landeck, the mayor of Bridgeview, thinks he's doing this. We're going to take care of these. He's going to be out of his job. There'll be a Muslim mayor there in Oak Lawn. They just gave that little punk that had the gun on him $850,000. The cops are trying to take that gun away from him. Get rid of all of them.
Thanks for the call there. Steve Landeck and those like him, I'd say throw Jim Dodge in there in Orland Park, too. They are the Jacob Fries of Chicagoland. They'll be campaigning in Arabic before you know it. One other thing, too, since we're talking about, vetting and this idea of assimilating. This was really meant more for the American audience, but it's applicable. This piece I referenced last week from Peter Berkowitz about the scarcity of a classical liberal education in higher education. But it speaks to the mind's eye we need to have with respect to vetting people who desire to make America their home. We're not doing a great job of extending excellence in citizenship among the indigenous population. It's worth noting. So to bring in those that have no interest in the idea of America exacerbates the problem, it seems to me. Berkowitz wrote, "Excellence in most any interesting or worthy human undertaking requires years of discipline and training. To perform at the highest levels of sports, the arts, law, medicine, commerce, teaching, scholarship, writing, military service, statesmanship, and virtually every useful, honorable, or intrinsically rewarding pursuit typically depends on extensive discipline and training. It would be odd, therefore, if excellence as a citizen and human being called for anything less. Indeed, down through the ages, a liberal education, an education to foster flourishing as a free person, was understood as essential to the achievement of civic and human excellence." So that's not really the attitude that is being displayed within our mediating institutions in this country, much less is that the ethos in so many other countries around the world. So that whole vetting process, vetting, derogatory information, does this person or family want to come to America to live as a free and productive to live as free and productive people? That seems to me the fundamental question that you have to answer convincingly. Do you want to live as a free, productive, peaceful person? Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Planning a wedding is a monumental task. After months and months of preparation, on your wedding day, you have a lot to think about. The flowers, the catering, the bridal party, the DJ, the seating chart. It can be overwhelming, and no one wants all of that stress to take away from the joy of the moment. That's why you need a wedding photographer you can trust to capture those important moments so that no matter what happens on your wedding day, you'll have those memories to enjoy for years to come. For over 30 years, brides and their families have trusted Tom Kaloran Photography with their wedding days. This locally owned family business will make sure you have lasting memories to share for years to come. Tom Kaloran Photography is the official photographer for AM 560 The Answer. To learn more and to see their portfolio, just visit TomKaloranPhotography.com. That's KILLORAN Photography.com. Or call them at 708-361-0025. Tom Kaloran Photography. Capturing important life moments for over 30 years.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 6:36, I just segued right into it. Our latest installment of Campus Beat. Dramatic shift in popular opinion in America about the value of a college education. Get your reaction to that, 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 21 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Incoming Chief Judge Charles S. Beach II will be sworn in this morning. That ceremony will take place at Ogilvie Auditorium at the Chicago Kent College of Law starting at 11 a.m. Illinois Supreme Court Chief Justice P. Scott Neville will be administering the oath of office. And according to the court, this marks a new chapter focused on transparency, modernization, and public service. Illinois is not adapting the new federal no tax on tips provision, meaning that tipped workers in the state will still owe Illinois income tax on tips even when those tips are exempt at the federal level. Under the new federal rules, qualified tips and overtime pay are exempt from federal income tax, but Illinois will still tax them. Workers must add those exempt tax back onto their state returns, a change that analysts say could cause confusion. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Get ready for a musical journey like no other when the Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Chicago on December 26th on their The Ghost of Christmas Eve 2025 tour. Enter to win tickets and the grand prize of a 75-inch TV, a home stereo system, and a $1,000 gift card. Enter today at 560theanswer.com/TSO.
Dan Proft here to tell you about our 2025 Food for the Poor campaign. If you've listened to this station and to our show for any length of time, then you already know about Food for the Poor. They are a nonprofit, faith-based organization that provides food, water, medicine, clothing, and life-saving supplies directly to local partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. We all know about how bad the situation is in Latin America and the Caribbean right now. Economic decline, political instability and corruption, and high food prices. The only thing standing between these families and starvation is Food for the Poor and their partners who are providing life-saving food relief on the ground. But in order to get food and water to those who need it most, Food for the Poor needs your help. Your gift of just $150 can provide food and water for 2 children for an entire year. For a gift of $300, you can provide food and water for 4 children for an entire year. To make a gift of any amount, just call 844-862-4673. That's 844-862-4673. Or visit 560theanswer.com/foodforthepoor.
Did you know a will alone does not keep your family out of court when you die? The court still has to approve your will, but get a living trust, and your estate can be settled clearly without issue. Talk to the attorneys at Naumann & Associates. They prepare wills and trusts for a flat fee, no surprises, no hourly rate. With decades of experience, they know the law and offer a free consultation. Contact Naumann & Associates in Elk Grove Village, nalawgroup.com. Call 847-593-8777.
Have you noticed a change since your IT provider was bought out? What used to be a trusted local partner is now a faceless nationwide service provider. At Unique Computing Solutions, we've welcomed many new clients who were fed up with that exact experience. We are locally rooted and committed for the long haul. Visit our website at uniquecomputing-solutions.com. That's uniquecomputing-solutions.com. Your IT challenges solved.
Don't get stuck with a cold shower this fall. Give CenterGuard Plumbing a call. Get a new 40-gallon water heater installed for just $1,195 for standard installation, or a 50-gallon heater for $1,295 standard installation. A proud new sponsor of AM 560, CenterGuard is offering specials on new water heaters. Don't wait. The cold temperatures are coming, and the same can happen to your water heater. If you're having hot water issues or your water heater's over 8 years old, take advantage of this fall special today. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon, and they can schedule your repair or install the same day on in-stock water heaters. They'll even haul away your old one, no charge. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM 560 to receive fall special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Check off the wish list with instant savings and free battery offers on select steel tools. Shop online or in store.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, back to the pre-holiday rush patterns. We've got solid traffic if you're on the Jane Addams Tollway eastbound between Elgin Toll Plaza to Route 31. An accident blocking the right lane there. Traffic is stacked on the Kennedy, especially outbound between 90 and O'Hare Airport. About 25-minute delay there. The Bishop Ford is solid with brake lights due to an accident blocking the 2 right lanes. That's on the outbound between Steel Bridge and Dalton Avenue. The Dan Ryans are cooking this morning, especially the express lanes inbound between 35th and the Stevenson Expressway. How about the Eisenhower. About a 5-minute backup if you're inbound between Manheim and East Avenue. And we got some issues on the trains. Delays up to 20 minutes on the electric line at University Park Branch outbound to University Park. And we've got delays on the Metro Milwaukee West line outbound from Union Station. This report sponsored by Blinster.com. There's never been a better time to buy blinds. Save up to 50% site-wide during Blinster.com's Cyber Week sale going on right now. Skip the big box stores and order online for less. This sale ends soon. Go to Blinster.com today. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a light dusting to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and walkways, potentially impacting travel. The high temperature will reach 29. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Cause they got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here on this installment of Campus Beat. If you went to college, if you got an undergraduate degree, would you go back and do it again, knowing what you know now? Are you encouraging your children to get an undergraduate degree or not? They're two separate questions. They're sort of tied together. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. There's some new survey research out about this. Americans' attitude toward college has changed pretty dramatically over the last decade. About a decade ago, more than half of Americans thought that college was worth the cost. The question, is a 4-year college degree worth the cost because people have a better chance to get a good job and earn more money over their lifetime, or not worth the cost because people often graduate without specific job skills and with a large amount of debt to pay off? That's even a leading question, and leading question in the direction of college, I would say. People have a better chance to get a good job and earn more money over their lifetime, even though the not worth the cost moderates it to some extent. But a decade ago, a little bit over a decade ago, more than half of the country, half of U.S. adults surveyed, 53%, worth the cost. October of this year, 33%, a third say it's worth the cost. A full 2/3 of Americans, just under. And by the way, there's another problem there, which at 63%, most people in college right now couldn't tell me what fraction that represents. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. 33% worth the cost, 63% not worth the cost. So if you got a degree, would you go back, and if you were doing it today, would you do it? I mean, if you were on the cusp of making a decision as to whether or not to go to college, would you do it? What are you providing in terms of advice and counsel for your kids? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. I think there's something that's left out of that question, though, too, that's even more biased than the characterization of the benefits of a college degree. What's not included? This is a very utilitarian question about higher education. Very utilitarian. And it's something I beat this drum quite a bit, only because Western civilization hangs in the balance. So I think it's kind of important. And Robbie George wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. A solution to campus extremism. Robbie George is the great professor at Princeton University, who runs and has for about 2.5 decades a civics program there. He also makes the point that there is this slow rolling, to be sure, renaissance that is arguably happening in higher education. Slowly, slow rolling, I admit. But Robbie George is trying to encourage people, so he runs through a number of the programs that do exist, even at institutions that are otherwise more or less totalitarian re-education camps. At Harvard, the Human Flourishing Program, under the direction of Professor Tyler Vanderweel, studies and promotes human well-being and fulfillment, deploys natural and social scientific methods to understand what advances and what impedes human flourishing. Students learn to think critically about meaning, value, and happiness. More than a dozen other universities host similar initiatives, including the University of Pennsylvania, University of Chicago, Johns Hopkins. The Foundation for Excellence in Higher Education, an independent body founded in 2012 to promote classical and civic education, regularly brings together the leaders of these initiatives to compare notes and share best practices. What has emerged over the past decade or so is a nationwide movement for the renewal of liberal arts education. And he goes through a number of examples, some of which we've talked about in some depth here. The School of Civic Life and Leadership at the North Carolina, the Institute of American Civics at Tennessee Knoxville, the School of Civic Leadership at the University of Texas at Austin, the Hamilton School for Classical and Civic Education at the University of Florida, the Center for Civics, Culture, and Society at Ohio State, Center for American Civic Leadership and Public Discourse at South Carolina. University of Michigan recently announced it's building a similar program. So there does seem to be this attempt, at least by some, to claw back to the university's role in real higher education. Not just the utilitarianism. It's the problem I have with sort of this binary of college or no college is that both sides sort of reject something that's fundamental. I mean, not completely. I'm speaking in generalizations, of course. Not everybody does, but the conversation is driven to this false binary, in my view, which is it's all a matter of utilitarianism or political activism. So on the one hand, you have so much of the pro-college crowd that is completely obsessed by the credentialing and pays no mind to the fact that most colleges and universities are those totalitarian re-education camps that I describe them to be. Well, so that's no good, because they watch higher education rot from the inside out, and they'll pay whatever price to get little Johnny or little Sally whatever credential, because they know that's the path to and to the right schools too, for the right socialization and relationship building, so they're in the right strata, so when they go get some paper pushing job at a bank or a consulting company that they marry the right person, all that jazz, you know the drill. But that has nothing to do with real education. And on the other side, the people that sort of reflexively eschew college education, like, I don't want to go into debt, I'm just going to go into the trades and an apprentice program, and I'll be making more than most everybody, sans the engineers coming out of college, and I won't have the debt and so on and so forth. Fine. I mean, those are fine choices. But I'm just saying you're missing the important point about higher education, or about education generally. It's not limited to higher. It should be happening at K through 12 too, so that maybe some kids in college could actually do fractions. But it goes back to what I said before the news, what Peter Berkowitz described as excellence in citizenry. I mean, the only way that we persist as a free people in this country and in the West generally is if you have people that are well-rounded, inquisitive, independent-minded, critical thinkers that can pick up a scam when they see one, that understand the nature of man, that appreciate the importance of mediating institutions, so they're watchful. I mean, without that, well, you're seeing what happens without that. So if our move away from classical liberal education and the proper intellectual development of our citizenry, excellence in citizenship, if you will, to borrow from Berkowitz. If we're moving away from that and you see the results, then we should be running screaming towards it, in my view. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Ralph in Rantoul, he's in academia. Hey, Ralph.
Yeah, don't hold it against me, please.
Right.
You know, my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering, I got it from Purdue. It literally, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. My employer later went on and paid for my MBA, which was great. But my degree, I understand the world around me. I've been able to build factories, run companies. My graduate degree helped me understand business more and be a better business operator and a company operator. I've traveled the world. I've lived around the world. Literally the best thing ever. But Dan, I'll tell you what was my biggest life-changing event in college was I was led to Christ by some roommates. And really becoming a Christian and getting the right worldview has been the biggest thing in my life. Would I have been able to academically and professionally do all these things? Of course. But the best thing ever was getting my mind right, my worldview right, which allowed me to select and marry a wonderful Christian woman later and put together a wonderful, aligned, beneficial, productive life to also raise a kid who wanted to do something stupid in college. And I said, no, you can do something stupid from the spare bedroom at a local community college. If you're going to do something decent in college, we'll pay for that, but not stupid. And that kid has got a wonderful career at a really gigantic big box store with headquarters in Northwest Arkansas, is doing wonderfully. And, you know, the family is great. So God is good. My education is great. And chemical engineering, I like being able to do stuff, Dan, and solving things and understanding things and building things and all that stuff. If you can do the math, if you can tolerate the physics, the optics, the chemistry, all this stuff, STEM is great. We need more youth in this country who can grow up and get stuff done, not just push papers. Okay?
Well, yeah.
So,
thanks for the call, Ralph. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I posted on this at Ux over the weekend. This was a good comment from the Royal Commentator, his handle. I have a BA from SMU and Oxford in History and Social Sciences. That is not an easy degree to obtain. I had to take foreign language, mathematics, anthropology, organic chemistry, Russian literature, etc. People wonder how it is I can see perspective. It's because I was taught to think. Text from 630, no, I would not do college again. I have read and learned way more on my own since graduating. Well, right. I mean, that's fine. I'm not saying it's mandatory, but which is also why it shouldn't start in college. But you got to get people, your kids mainly, on a track to what both my commenter here, the Royal Commentator, and what 630 said. That they're intellectually curious, that they're doing independent study, that they're being exposed to the full range of ideas on, all the important disciplines. And then they go from, X to Y to Z in those areas that interest them the most. But they get that exposure and they're challenged to think about important ideas, and to appreciate beauty, to, be respectful of their ancestry, who came before us and what they did, the innovators and the risk takers. I mean, that seems to me mission critical. Really, it's the basis of all these conversations and the basis of the divide in this country. Yeah, it's not people with a BA versus people without a BA. It really is people who have the ability to critically think, process information, and make rational and draw rational conclusions about what they've consumed versus those who just don't. I mean, the attention span, the lack of these numbers. We mentioned this last week, but it continues to make its way around. So the details. I mean, that University of California, San Diego report that was done on how poor the freshmen at UC San Diego are in terms of how much remediation needs to be done for them to do college-level work. And again, UC San Diego, this is a microcosm. 1 in 8 freshmen lack rudimentary high school math skills defined as geometry, algebra, and algebra 2. 1 in 8. They don't even know what 1 in 8 is, what percentage. It gets worse. Students have been placed in a remedial high school math class in 2023, had roughly 5th grade level abilities. Only 39% could round the number 374,518 to the nearest 100. Less than half could do that. That's a 3rd grade skill. Share of students at UC San Diego remedial math who answered questions correctly from the Common Core. A whole nother topic. These are the grade level questions. 1st grade level question, 87% answer correctly. 2nd grade, 82%. 3rd grade, 74%. These are college freshmen. 4th grade, 64%. 5th grade, 54%. By 7th grade level math questions, you're at 41%. 8th grade, you're at 19%. That's a problem. And it's not because everybody needs to go on to be a mathematician. It's sort of base level cognitive skills and the intellectual curiosity to build upon what happens in the classroom. And obviously that has not happened. These are kids that have either enough motivation or enough pressure at home to be at UC San Diego, to have gone past high school into college somehow. Thank you, teachers' unions and social promotion. So think about what those who didn't make that cut, where most, not all, where most of them are. That is a huge problem, as I said, for our persistence as a free people. And now you see the elements of command control insinuating themselves, starting with the big cities. And frankly, with a lot of cheering from the wealthier suburbs. Eat me last. I get why. Dangerous times. Not just from threats on the outside, but from what we've done to ourselves through what we've done to the institutions that provide for a free society. Al in Rosemont, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, Dan. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to say something about the apprenticeship program and the trades. Most people think this is a fallback scenario. At the end of the day, when you spend all your time, you just could have went to college and been anybody, because it's just as tough being a plumber as it is in most of these graduate situations. I sent my youngest to Northridge Prep in Niles. He's at Ole Miss. But, the trades is not a fallback like people are trying to prop it up as.
No, I agree. I agree. Thanks for the call out. But my point is a simple one. Whether you're a plumber or a banker, read. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
AM 560. The Answer.
Coming up at 7:07, a lot to discuss with Stephen Bucci. Of course, we'll talk immigration policy. We'll also talk about Trump, quote-unquote, closing the skies over Venezuela and the status of his proposed peace plan between Ukraine and Russia. All that at 7:07 with Stephen Bucci from the Heritage Foundation. It is now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Talking to Russia and Ukraine trying to end their war. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
We don't just want to end the war, we also want to help Ukraine be safe forever, so never again will they face another invasion.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, after another round of talks over the weekend with Ukrainians, he called very productive.
Today, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is heading to Moscow. He'll have meetings with Russian officials later this week. It comes as the White House is pushing hard, both privately and publicly, to reach a peace deal before the end of this year. The president has urged Ukraine to cede some of its territory to get a deal over the finish line.
That's Fox's Mark Meredith of the White House. On his way back there on Air Force One, the president talked to reporters about Venezuela, confirming a report he did talk to leader Nicolas Maduro.
I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
And he said this when asked about a Truth Social post over the weekend that airspace over Venezuela is closed.
Don't read anything into it.
The president also gave his support to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, backing his denial of a report that during the U.S. military operation blowing up drug trafficking boats off Venezuela's coast, there was a second strike on one boat, killing survivors of the first bombing. Some lawmakers in Congress want an investigation. Now an update on an Afghan national, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, suspected of attacking two National Guard members on patrol in Washington, D.C. last week. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem tells ABC's This Week.
We believe he was radicalized since he's been here in this country.
Andrew Wolf remains in critical condition. The other soldier shot, Sarah Beckstrom, died on Thanksgiving. It's a better morning at airports with about 165 flights canceled after a rough Sunday after Thanksgiving. One of the busiest travel days of the year, especially in the Midwest. There were 12,000 flights delayed, more than 1,000 canceled, half of them to and from Chicago.
Historic for this time of year, really. Downtown, where I'm at, about 8 inches plus in total. And what did that cause? Well, a ton of issues locally.
Fox Weather's Robert Ray. There were hundreds of car crashes, Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 23 degrees here in Chicago at AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. The son of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is set to appear in a Chicago courtroom today. Federal prosecutors say they will not seek the death penalty in return for Guzman Lopez changing his plea to guilty. A second son of El Chapo, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, had pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges this past summer. Travelers at the end of the long Thanksgiving holiday weekend were finding hundreds of flights delayed and canceled here in Chicago yesterday following that winter storm that blanketed the Midwest, while a wintry mix of rain and snow developed in the Northeast. On Saturday, nearly 8.5 inches of snow fell at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. That sets a record for the highest single calendar day snowfall in November at the airport. Officials with the Federal Aviation Administration said departures to O'Hare were delayed on average by about an hour due to snow or ice, and that departures from the airport were delayed about 15 minutes. Last night, a ground stop was issued at Midway Airport after Southwest Airlines jets skidded off the runway and into a grassy area. There were no injuries reported. Today is the day Chicago's winter overnight parking ban goes into effect. From now until April 1st, overnight parking is banned between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. 7 days a week on the city's main streets. Signs are posted in areas where that ban is in effect. Officials say the ban is necessary to make way for snowplows, buses, and emergency vehicles during the winter months. And one person is dead following a shooting last night in the Bronzeville neighborhood. According to reports, 3 people were inside a vehicle when 3 unknown people approached them. One of those pulled out a handgun and began firing shots. An 18-year-old male was killed. 2 other people in the car were injured. There are no suspects in custody at this time. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Get ready for a musical journey like no other when the Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Chicago on December 26th on their The Ghost of Christmas Eve 2025 tour. Enter to win tickets and the grand prize of a 75-inch TV, a home stereo system, and a $1,000 gift card. Enter today at 560theanswer.com/TSO.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Bob Chavato, owner of GoExceed and a customer of Signature Bank. By leveraging AI and machine learning, we provide data management solutions for corporations to save time and money managing their cellular devices. While we rely on machines to help us run our business, we believe personal relationships are essential. This is why we chose Signature Bank. Having a banking partner who understands our background, our business, and our priorities is fundamental to our success. Any bank can provide basic services, but having a bank that you can trust, one that looks out for you and treats your business like its own, that's irreplaceable.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Just how good is Pure Talk's current deal for unlimited wireless? Well, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Because right now, for just $29.95 a month, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for life. Not your phone's life, your life. This is Pure Talk's top-tier plan. It comes with a crazy fast 5G network along with a 30-gig hotspot. And at just $29.95 a month, there has never been a better opportunity to lock in a ridiculously low rate for as long as you live. And save thousands and thousands of dollars along the way. This plan is normally $65 a month, but if you switch today, you will save over 50% every single month for the rest of your life. See what I mean? It really is the deal of your lifetime. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. Offer ends 12/7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes, if you're afraid to open your mail because IRS collection letters could be coming, listen carefully. The IRS is cracking down, taking paychecks, freezing bank accounts, revoking passports. That's a fact. But here's what most people don't know. There are official tax relief programs designed to help struggling taxpayers. Programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Optima's award-winning team will fight to protect your paycheck, your passport, and your property. Their tax attorneys and licensed tax professionals will work tirelessly to get you the best deal possible with the IRS. Every day, penalties and interest keep piling up, so don't wait. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, tracking issues all over the area, including Veterans Memorial Tollway right now. An accident, a vehicle in the ditch northbound between Army Trail Road to before Lake Street, about a 5-minute backup there. Traffic is stacked on the Kennedy, especially outbound between 90 and O'Hare, about a 28-minute delay in the area. An accident blocking the right shoulder if you're on the Jane Addams, but eastbound between Randall Road to past Route 31, about a 15-minute backup. The Bishop Ford starting to stack up due to an earlier accident outbound between 130th and Steel Bridge, possibly the Ike experiencing some backup if you're inbound between St. Charles and Tri-State. Finally, delays on the trains, the Metro Milwaukee West Line inbound Union Station and Metro Union Pacific Northwest Main Line inbound to Ogilvie Transportation Center. We've got backups in both centers. The support a service of Air Right Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections, or take advantage of limited time federal rebates on a new furnace. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. That's AIR-RITE.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a light dusting to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and walkways, potentially impacting travel. The high temperature will reach 29. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the good morning. Dan Proft here. Getting back to a discussion we've had quite extensively this morning in the wake of the two National Guardsmen who were shot, one of whom was murdered, the other fighting for his life. And, of course, the fallout from that in terms of who is responsible for the failure to properly vet people granted asylum to this country. What's the predicate question is it even possible to vet people from third world countries like Afghanistan, but not limited to Afghanistan? Is Trump striking the right tone and taking the right evasive action in the wake of those targeted killing and attempted killing? And what is our expectation for the course correction the Trump administration is going to make with respect to not just the Afghan refugee population or asylumee population, I suppose, but more generally with the granting of asylum? How are they going to process what Kristi Noem talked about, the 1.5 million asylum applications that are backlogged, much less checking, doing what? Doing some sort of individualized status check on the 70,000 plus Afghan asylumees that were granted a categorical parole after Afghan fell and the Taliban took over. It's complicated stuff. Chad Robichaux, I mentioned earlier in the show, is a Marine vet who served in Afghanistan. He had some good perspectives on what he expected to happen back in 2021 when we experienced that after we experienced that catastrophic retreat by the Biden administration 6 months earlier. And then the indiscriminate categorical parole that I just mentioned.
The NGOs were doing the evacuations. We were evacuating people out of Afghanistan, not bringing people to America. In fact, no NGO, no individual has the ability and authority to bring someone to America. The only people that does is the United States government. And during the time of evacuations, we were watching the U.S. military, forced by Joe Biden. I have to give credit. Our service members did an amazing job there, but forced by Biden's White House to put unvetted, undocumented Afghans on planes and fly them straight to the United States and let them loose in the interior of the country, 80 to 100,000 of them. And when that happened, I knew immediately, it can't go well. Eventually, one of them has to be a bad guy and is going to do an attack on the United States, and this would happen.
And it's been more than one. We've had, one that was just sentenced from terrorist actions that took place around the election in Oklahoma, and then two more this past week. The guy who posted the TikTok video making a bomb and threatening Department of Homeland Security, and obviously the shooter. Report last year from Department of Homeland Security, obtained by Chuck Grassley. Nearly 7,000 of those Afghan asylees had derogatory information, including more than 5,000 characterized as national security, as the derogatory information being national security related. Problem. Trump knew it back in 2021. This is an interview he gave with Cheryl Atkinson.
And nobody knows who the hell they are, Cheryl. These aren't the interpreters that we taught. These were people that rushed into the planes, and they were so interested in trying to make it sound like, they're doing a good job. These people, many of these people are going to be terrorists, okay? They're going to be terrorists. They were very powerful. They were very energetic in getting onto the aircraft.
They say they're vetting them very carefully with biometrics and documentation.
They're not doing that, and you can't, because there is no documentation in that country.
J.D. Vance in 2021, just to close the loop, sparring with then Republican Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska.
I see that Senator Ben Sasse went on national TV yesterday and attacked me for suggesting we should focus on getting our own citizens out of Afghanistan rather than the Afghan refugees. And he said great countries honor their word. Of course, nobody disagrees with that. It's a ridiculous platitude. The question is not whether we honor our word. The question is who have we made promises to? Who do we owe an obligation toward? And to any leader of this country, the obvious answer should be American citizens. So let's focus first on getting them out of Afghanistan before we say another word about the Afghan refugees. Now, Senator Sasse also said that he would welcome the Afghan refugees to his neighborhood with open arms. That's very sweet of him. I'm sure a lot of liberals will say very nice things about him because he said that. But the question is not whether we help the Afghan refugees. The question is, first, how do we do it? And second, how do we do it in a way that doesn't destroy our own sovereignty? So let's have an honest question about what exists in Afghanistan. According to Pew, 40% of the people there believe that blowing yourself up, committing a suicide bombing, is an acceptable way to solve a problem. So yes, let's help the Afghans who helped us, but let's ensure that we're properly vetting them so that we don't get a bunch of people who believe they should blow themselves up at a mall because somebody looked at their wife the wrong way. That is not real leadership. Real leadership is accepting the trade-offs of the situation, putting our own citizens first, and not dealing with fake platitudes because it gets people in the media to say nice things about you.
For more on this, pleased to be joined for our weekly conversation with Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
As always, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me back.
So I guess the predicate question, as I mentioned, is it possible to vet individuals seeking asylum from third world countries like Afghanistan or Syria, or Somalia, for that matter, or as Tom Homan said, it's just there's no real way to do it. As Jim Comey said, actually, at the end of the Obama administration about the prospect of Syrian refugees and the FBI getting involved in assisting with the vetting, there's no real way to do it. What do you think?
Yeah, there really isn't a viable way to do it. I mean, you can go to extraordinary means, check with Interpol, check with all of our allies, check with the Israelis. There's ways to gather the information, but those systems are not there to do hundreds of thousands or even millions of people in a relatively quick way. That's how you check one guy who's coming over and saying that he now wants to defect to our side. You do that really deep vetting. That takes a lot of time. And you don't for sure let the people go into your country while you're doing that vetting, because that's nuts. You know this person has a potential to be a bad guy. You either incarcerate them until you finish the vetting, or you make them wait someplace else while you're doing the vetting. You don't let them into America and turn them loose on our citizens before you do it. So it's sort of a jumbled answer. There's no fast way to do it. There's no guaranteed effective way to do it. There are methods that can be used, but they're designed for one-offs or very small groups of people over whom you have 100% control while you're doing the vetting.
Well, this Chad Robichaux, this Marine whose clip a clip of him I just played, he talked about getting his the translator, Afghan translator he worked with over there back here, and what happened was his translator had to go to essentially what they call a lily pad country, the UAE, and wait 9 months to get vetted, and now he's over here. So I suppose if you have a situation like in Afghanistan where you have U.S. military who worked with these individuals, then you have the prospect of having people vouch for them in terms of having interacted with them over an extended period of time and being able to separate, as Robichaux was talking about, somebody who we're working with as a mercenary because we have shared hatred of the Taliban versus someone but does not have any love for America versus someone that really wants to come to America, and you could in his estimation, for example, would make a contribution to America, could be an American citizen, is somebody who is willing and ready to assimilate. There's a big difference there.
Oh, totally. 100% difference. Just because you both hate the Taliban, I mean, there's a lot of really crazy radicals out there who hate America as much as they hate the Taliban.
Yeah.
But they're also very good at switching sides. So if it's advantageous today to work with the Taliban, they'll do that. If it's advantageous to work with the Americans tomorrow, then they'll do that. That's not the kind of person you want to bring into America. I mean, just for no other reason, Dan, but people that come to America, they expect that the streets really are paved with gold, that they're going to get jobs, they're going to get taken care of. Then they get here and find out, if they get a job, maybe it's the night person in a gas station in some place that doesn't like them because they're different. That's a recipe for disaster for that person who may have been, had a good thought of America. Then they get here and find out, man, this is not all it's cracked up to be. I'm going to take action. You think about those two young men that did the Boston Marathon bombing. They were here. They come in legally. They had all the benefits. They were taking welfare and everything. The older one had a job. The younger one was in school, and they still decided, no, we're going to blow these people up. It's a different mindset that we're just not really good at understanding and divining what in the end they're going to do. That's not the people you want somebody, doing temporary duty as a screener, deciding, oh yeah, this person can come in.
Yeah, that's actually Robichaud talked about that specifically too, about the feeling of betrayal, and that opens the door to radicalization. With Kristi Noem sort of intimated had occurred where this shooter lived in small town Washington State. So I mean that is that recipe. Noem also talked about those that are asylum grantees having to check in on an annualized basis. I mean part of this whole discussion, includes an answer to the feasibility question. How many can we process, and can we, essentially check in with in a routine basis, or flag if we see something concerning on social media, for example. I mean, what is, without getting into a surveillance state. I mean, all the sort of complicated questions that we discussed after 9/11 and with respect to the Patriot Act. I mean, how overarching do you want the state to be? How much command control do you want them to have over the lives of American citizens, or even those who we've granted some sort of legal status here? And then what is feasible as well in terms of the personnel we have versus the personnel what is being suggested would require. I mean, all those seem to be unanswered questions.
Yeah, look, I one time I testified before Congress about vetting, and this was to do with the Syrians coming in. And some of the legislators were saying, look, the State Department tells us they're screening all these people 100%. And I said, you know what? That's a bunch of crap. No offense, Congressman, but they're lying to you. And one of the congressmen was a former CIA case officer. And he said, I have to say, but Dr. Booch is right here. When I was, a case officer, my cover in one of the countries I went to was as a consular officer with the State Department. And as part of my cover, I would do these vetting interviews. And it's really hard to do. And we depend on the locals to help us do it. Not local police, not local security forces, local employees, of that country who work for the State Department. And I told him, I said, well, Congressman, I'm pretty comfortable with you vetting them. You're a spy. You're designed to try and figure out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. Even our State Department people who do that vetting don't get any psychological training. They don't get interrogation training. They're just like clerks. And those are the people doing the so-called, high-level vetting. That's just crazy and dangerous. And we end up with cases like we had with this shooter.
Well, here's the problem, of course. I mean, somebody seeking asylum because what's the legitimate the legitimate basis is political violence or religious persecution. So where are they going to be coming from? I mean, well, actually, these days they could be coming from Western Europe, but generally speaking, you're not having asylum seekers come from first world Western nations. And so, I still want America to be a haven for people that are suffering political or religious persecution. Think about Christians in Nigeria right now. But at the same time, we have this problem where people who know, like yourself, are saying, the vetting is only so good, and you can only do so much so fast, and so there needs to be, it seems to me, something on the order of a safe third country, like we do generally speaking for asylum seekers that are under no exigent circumstances. Even for those who are under exigent circumstances, a safe third country where we can have some relationship where people that are seeking asylum can be placed here or there until we can process their application to, a reasonable degree of certitude and then still maintain America's status as a beacon for those suffering under oppression.
Yeah, we have to try and come up with that system. We do not have one there now, we can't just do a hand wave like the Biden administration did and say, well, we don't have time to do all of them, but they need to come, so let's just let them in. We'll deal with them after the fact. That is suicidal on a societal level. You can't do that, and now we're seeing the results, which are not good.
On another topic, Trump apparently had a call with Nicolas Maduro, the dictator in Venezuela. He wouldn't go into much detail other than to say, yes, I had a call with him.
The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit
No,
about
I can't do that.
Sure, what did you say? Did you say it went well?
I would say it went well or badly.
He wouldn't say if it went well or bad, but Fox News was reporting that he gave Maduro an ultimatum to flee Venezuela as the potential of land operations loom. This after he sort of, via social media, closed the skies over Venezuela, and a lot of airlines, obviously taking the President of the United States seriously, have diverted flights accordingly. So what's your handle on developments with respect to Venezuela?
Well, they're not going well. Obviously, Maduro is not playing along. He's thinking he's going to tough it out against Trump. I think that's probably a bad guess on his part. This Trump is serious. He wants Maduro to go. He prefer for him to go voluntarily, so we don't have to do anything else about it. But I'm not sure that's an option. Maduro is kind of a hardhead. He's a real dedicated radical Marxist, and he thinks he can win this. And that's not a good scenario for America right now.
Well, I know Suburban Dad on the download there, Tim Kaine in Virginia, has said he's refiling a resolution to require congressional approval for military action in Venezuela. And there's still this sort of hot potato about the boat strikes on narco-terrorists. But, I mean, to do land operations in Venezuela, you would expect and you would desire Trump to go to Congress for that, would you not?
It depends. If it's the military, yes. If it's the intel community, that's a covert action that does not necessarily require congressional approval. It does require congressional notification of the appropriate leaders of both parties in the House and the Senate, the folks that are on the intel committees, that sort of thing. So more to come on this, depending on how the president decides to do it. If we launch a Marine, amphibious group there, you're supposed to get congressional approval according to the War Powers Act. Mm-hmm. Now, again, there's still the debate as to how long after an action does the president have before he has to provide those briefings. And the executive branch and legislative branch still regularly disagree on that. and there's not a heck of a lot the Senate can do about that. They can say, hey, you can't do that. You've got to tell us. Not necessarily so.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official. Now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And Stephen Bucci joined us at the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. I'm the co-founder and developer of Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. From all of us at Virago to all you at 560 AM, we want to wish you the happiest of holidays, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a safe and joyful New Year. And thank you for making us a part of your day. As the holidays come, we know 2 things for sure. Family get-togethers and flu season is here. Health experts are watching the H3N2 variant this year. Don't wait to protect yourself and your family. Take Virago. Be proactive. Be protective. We at Virago again wish you a Merry, Merry Christmas.
Flu season is here. Boost your immune system with Virago and protect yourself. Order your bottle of Virago online today. Visit myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30% at checkout. That's myvirago.com. Maha and Virago, making America healthy again.
If you're looking for a watch that makes a statement, Roland's Jewelers in downtown Libertyville has the perfect timepiece for you. Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. Roland's carries my favorite watch brand, Tag Heuer. Tag Heuer is all about precision with a sleek, bold style. And I've got a Tag Heuer watch from my friends at Roland's Jewelers. I love it. They've got a great selection of other fashion-forward watch brands like Bell & Ross, Movado, Tissot, and Michelle, or consider Roland's iconic collection of pre-owned Rolexes. Let Roland's watch specialists help you find the perfect timepiece that fits your style and have their terrific experts show you the Tag Heuer watch that I bought from Roland's. Ask for it by name. Tell them it's Mike Gallagher's watch. Visit Roland's Jewelers in downtown Libertyville or RolandsJewelers.com. That's Roland's, ROLLANDS, RolandsJewelers.com, or call them 847-918-7300. 847-918-7300. Roland's Jewelers, a family-owned jeweler you can trust, just like I do.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, coming up at 7:37, we're going to talk to Howard Husak from the American Enterprise Institute about the history of public housing, ignominious as it is, generally speaking. It has renewed relevance when you have the likes of BLM Brandon and Zoran Mamdani that want to turn city centers into the 21st century projects. Howard Husak on public housing, 7:37. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 23 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560, The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Another smash and grab robbery has been reported. This time thieves targeted the Express Food Mart on Devon Avenue in Rogers Park. Authorities say the robbers used a large rock to break the store's glass door and then took off with a lottery machine and a stash of tickets that were worth about $7,000, all within 30 seconds. The robbery has been reported to the Illinois State Lottery, and police are continuing to investigate. The son of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is set to appear in a Chicago courtroom later today. Federal prosecutors say they will not seek the death penalty in return for Joaquin Guzman Lopez changing his plea to guilty. A second son of El Chapo, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, had pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges this past summer. A ground stop was issued at Midway Airport last night after a Southwest Airlines jet skidded off the runway and into a grassy area. Flights were halted for about 2 hours while crews worked to clear the field. There were no injuries reported. This report is a service of Turnkey. Turnkey is the key to cyber protection. For a limited time, Turnkey is offering all new customers their first month's service free, including Microsoft licensing, antivirus, anti-malware, data backup, plus 24/7 help desk support. Visit turnkey.pro today. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Scott Jennings explains the differences between right and left.
It has been maddening to me to see the Democratic Party, the liberal movement, the radical progressives, turn on on Israel over the last couple of years. What distinguishes us from the radical left? The ability to tell the difference between right and wrong.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at 1, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, it's Scott Tucker, and I'm here with
Amy Jacobson
from Retirement Dakota with Scott Tucker and Amy Jacobson here on AM 560 The Answer. Now, I'm a financial advisor, and Amy's the co-host for our program. You know, Amy, recently President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. A lot of folks aren't realizing, Amy, that if they have highly appreciated assets, they can potentially tax defer the capital gains tax, place that money into a qualified opportunity fund, and then 10 years from now, get back out of that investment and pay no capital gains tax on either investment. Have you heard of such a thing, Amy?
I did not know about that. That seemed to be hidden in the bill.
It's only 900 some pages.
Yeah,
we have to pass it to see what's in it.
An easy beach read, yes.
Yes. And now there's another thing in the bill as well, Amy. Section 1202. Amy, did you read Section 1202?
I did not, but thank you for the homework assignment.
If you're a small business owner, many small business owners can now sell their small business and potentially pay no federal capital gains taxes on that capital gain of selling their business.
Wow.
If you'd like to get a free copy of my latest book, Escape Illinois, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Text the keyword book, that's BOOK, to 224-496-3999. Text the keyword book to 224-496-3999. In addition to the free copy of my latest book, Escape Illinois, Should I Stay or Should I Go? You'll also get our entire Retirement Dakota toolkit. We'll also give you the opportunity to talk to us 15 minutes for free over the telephone and at another time so we can go through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act with you, show you how to potentially sell your highly appreciated assets and pay no federal capital gains tax, how qualified opportunity funds work, and also if you're a small business owner, how to potentially pay no capital gains on the sale of your small business through Section 1202 of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Text book to 224-496-3999 or call that very same number, 224-496-3999.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm does not offer tax advice.
You know what really keeps me up at night? It's the criminals feel more and more bold. They have no fear of any consequences because there are none. So I did what anyone with a family should do. I called Goldilocks. They're not just some cookie-cutter security company. Goldilocks has been protecting Chicagoland homes and businesses for 4 decades, 40 years. And they actually listen. Their technician comes out to the house. He takes a look at what you need to make your house a smart home with a security system you can monitor from anywhere. It's built specifically for me and my family. Motion sensors, smart locks, cameras, monitoring, all customized. I don't trust anybody in Illinois to protect my family. I do it, and I did it by calling Goldilocks. I trust Goldilocks to keep my house, my property, and my family safe. Tell them Sean Thompson sent you, and Goldilocks will include 3 months free monitoring with any new installation. Call Goldilocks at 708-899-5600. That's 708-899-5600. Or visit them online at GoldilocksInc.com.
If you want thick, healthy, gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. Available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, tracking issues all over the area, including Veterans Memorial Tollway right now. An accident, a vehicle in the ditch northbound between Army Trail Road to before Lake Street, about a 5-minute backup there. Traffic is stacked on the Kennedy, especially outbound between 90 and O'Hare, about a 28-minute delay in the area. An accident blocking the right shoulder if you're on the Jane Addams, but eastbound between Randall Road to past Route 31, about a 15-minute backup. The Bishop Ford starting to stack up due to an earlier accident outbound between 130th and Steel Bridge, possibly the Ike experiencing some backup if you're inbound between St. Charles and Tri-State. Finally, delays on the trains, the Metro Milwaukee West Line inbound Union Station and Metro Union Pacific Northwest Main Line inbound to Ogilvie Transportation Center. We've got backups in both centers. The support a service of Air Right Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections, or take advantage of limited time federal rebates on a new furnace. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. That's AIR-RITE.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a light dusting to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and walkways, potentially impacting travel. The high temperature will reach 29. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and as I mentioned before the break, it's stunning in one respect and not surprising in another that you have big city mayors like BLM Brandon in Chicago and Brandon Scott, the two Brandons in Baltimore. I saw they were included in the Route 100 of the 100 most important or influential Black Americans. Really? But the Brandons of the world, the Zohran Mamdanis, the Karen Basses, all the big city mayors that are Democrat socialists or just straight up neo-Marxists, really a distinction in terms without much of a difference. One of the big ideas is to deal with the housing shortage and the affordability crisis in big blue cities. Have the cities become landlords again. Government housing. BLM Brandon got $1 billion in bonding authority to turn the financial district into public housing projects. Cabrini Green, Robert Taylor Redux, huh? Because it was such a wonderful success story, wasn't it? A piece reviewing Howard Husack's new book over at Governing notes this about government housing. In New York City, 20% of violent crimes occur within 100 feet of government housing. 1 in 5 violent crimes occur within 100 feet of government housing. Just 3% of households in government housing comprise 2 adults with children. A majority of the units are occupied either by single moms or by the elderly poor. African Americans, who make up 14% of the U.S. population, make up 42% of the government housing population. Permanent dependency. I mean, maybe that's not the vision, and maybe it is, but it's been the result either way, hasn't it? And we know that all too well in Chicago. So what is the future of government housing and these 21st century gambits by mayors who have little respect for, much less have they learned any lessons from, the recent past in their own cities? Howard Husack is a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and author of the book I was just referencing, The Projects, A New History of Public Housing. Howard Husack, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So, it's perfect, history of government housing. So give us sort of your contextual view of these real-time proposals from people like Mayor Brandon and Mayor Zohran.
Well, they've learned absolutely nothing from the past. There's really not enough understanding of how public housing, there was no grassroots demand for it. It was progressivism on steroids. A small group of progressive thought leaders, unconnected with poor people and their need for housing, who decided they were going to remake cities completely, tear down huge neighborhoods. And they did that in Chicago, and Chicago suffered more than almost any other city. Not only by building the horrible high-rises you mentioned, Robert Taylor, Cabrini Green, Ida B. Wells, you can go on and on about them. Right. But good neighborhoods were torn down in Bronzeville. The idea that poor neighborhoods can be good neighborhoods, that's what Zohran and the Brandons, they don't get, that it's their responsibility to make modest income neighborhoods good neighborhoods rather than replacing them with a government landlord that has shown no capacity to manage property effectively. None.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that about upwardly mobile, middle-income majority black communities or neighborhoods. Bronzeville is a good example. I mean, you go back and read stories in the Chicago Tribune when they started tearing down the projects and they did scatter site Section 8 housing, moving people out of the city that were in those human warehouses called projects and moving them to South Side majority black neighborhoods and South Side majority black South suburban majority black communities that were actually doing quite well. I remember the story. I've read the stories in the Chicago Tribune. Black residents of Roseland on the South Side say, like, don't send those people to our neighborhoods. It's not because we're racist. We're also black. It's because they don't have any socialization with home ownership. They don't have a stake in this community. You're just shoehorning them here without any consideration for what we've built in the neighborhood we have. And the result was exactly what Roseland residents feared.
Right. What happened is Robert Taylor and the other projects became magnets for extremely poor people. At first, you had middle-class people move in there because it was a good deal. They were new apartments. Then they figured out, wait a minute, I don't own anything here. I want to move to a house that I own so I can accumulate wealth, like normal middle-class people.
Right.
And what happened was you had a magnet for poor people that deteriorated. And then that concentration of poor people became something that had to be dealt with. Couldn't be housed in Robert Taylor anymore because it was falling apart. So what did you do? You voucherized. And that's exactly what happened. They voucherized. They sent them not only to the South Side, but the South suburbs, where middle-class African-American households were penalized because their hard work to get to those places was not understood and not appreciated, and their new neighbors were people who hadn't done what it takes to get to a middle-class neighborhood, get married, save money, get a down payment. Instead, you get to live here because you're poor. And that's what we had failed to appreciate among the lower middle class that had sacrificed so much to get to good neighborhoods.
And that's, I mean, and Jason Riley in his review of your book, The Projects, talks about exactly what you're describing. You know, it's trapping people in poverty. That's what you've done. And if you just out migrate them to another community, well, you're just exporting that same pathology.
Right, because you have to make life sacrifices and good life decisions to buy a house, even if it's a very modest house, like the one that Pope Leo grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, right? And that is no longer valued if you can just move into a cheap place because the government's paying for it. And the data on how long people stay is just stunning. 89% stay more than 5 years in a voucher house, 65% more than 10 years. 10% of New York City Housing Authority residents have lived there for 40 years or more. So you use the term long-term dependency. That's exactly right.
And the other thing, too, just going back to Riley's piece, that's some sort of an important point he makes. These the elites that you were talking about, the typical noblesse oblige leftists that we still suffer under in Chicago and Illinois. That they have no appreciation for how people sort themselves. They don't sort themselves randomly. They sort themselves, and this is a black sociologist, Franklin Frazier's landmark study of residential housing patterns in black neighborhoods in the 1930s. They sort themselves by education, income, family formation, rates of delinquency, other factors, just like any other ethnic groups do. So there's nothing, it's one of those things like we all want the same things. Well, yeah. And if you actually look at people's conduct, which is completely rational, people behave in very much the same ways.
Yeah. And it's really interesting if you read the history of the early 1950s when there were desperate and huge and bitter political battles about where to site public housing in Chicago. It was transfixed the city at that time. And you had middle-class black residents opposing new public housing moving in their neighborhoods. And that's why it ended up concentrated on the lakefront and on the State Street corridor, because not only white but black residents opposed it coming to them because they understood that it was not a shared value system, as you point out.
But this time, when we do it down LaSalle Street in the financial corridor, it's going to be different, Brandon Johnson tells us.
The thing to realize about it is it just does no benefit to the poor. That's where my heart is. What do we do to help people advance? Anybody who calls himself a conservative, who is not worried about upward mobility and helping lower income people advance, is not really part of the American experiment in a positive way. And if you can't buy and appreciate your residents, you are not part of the American dream. And so any scheme that directs you into government-owned housing where the government is the owner and you can never be the owner is doing nobody a favor. And guess what? The government can do some things efficiently. It didn't do a bad job cutting checks, if you think that's a good idea. People get their Social Security checks pretty much on time. But the government has no experience with real estate management. You need incentives, professionals, and it has no track record. The capital needs of the New York City Housing Authority, which is by far the largest public housing authority in the United States, 177,000 apartments. Can you imagine that? They have $78 billion in deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance means the ceilings leak, the toilets don't work, there's mold on the walls. And that's what poor people have to live in because the government doesn't have the expertise to manage real estate. So when the Brandons and Zoran say we're going to have the government take over again, be very wary.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody knows this, too. I mean, the CHA, Chicago Housing Authority, has about the same reputation as the Chicago public school system. Nobody is banging on the door to say, I want to, participate in what you're doing, except these slumlords. And that's another part of the history of government housing, too. These, leftist honkies live in places like Highland Park who enrich themselves by being slumlords subsidized by the federal and state and local governments.
It's a great deal to be a housing choice voucher, a.k.a. Section 8 landlord. It's a great deal. The government direct deposits the rent into the account every month. You don't have to go out and collect in poor neighborhoods, which can be hard work. The government just pays you on time every month. Maybe the tenants pay their 30%, maybe they don't. But you don't really worry about that because you're getting paid every month on time. And there are property owners who have thousands of these units. So they specialize in voucher housing. Not sure if they live in Highland Park or wherever, but somewhere on the North Shore, it's not unlikely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's something that needs a full vetting too. I mean, it's with that much money, there are people that know how to game the system, and there are about many of them, not all, many of them, especially the bigger players, are about as good a landlord as you were describing the New York Public Housing Authority.
Well, they don't really have an incentive to maintain the properties. In theory, HUD inspectors are supposed to come out and make sure there are no roaches. But, good luck with that. So they don't have an incentive to maintain because the tenants can't withhold the rent. The government pays it every month. So they're in a whole different universe of landlorddom.
So, speaking of solutions, we know that central planning is a catastrophe in this area of policy, as in all. But so what's a small c conservative approach to uplifting people that are wanting to climb the rungs and want to own property and build wealth and are trying to do the right things and they're starting from a difficult position? Right.
I mean, it's pretty clear, I think, from my book, I'll plug it again, The Projects, A New History of Public Housing, that I wouldn't have invented it in the first place, but here we are. We've got hundreds of thousands of units, hundreds of thousands of voucher units. We need to change the rules to incentivize people to become upward mobile. The most important thing we can do first, and the Trump administration is considering this, is a time limit on how long you can spend. The Trump budget has proposed a 2-year time limit. That would be a sea change because, as I said before, most people are staying more than 10 years. And if we say there's a time limit when you move in, probably have to do it for new tenants. say, get prepared, save your money. And guess what? We're going to change the rules for the rent. The rules right now are these. It's hard to believe this. The more money you earn if you're a public housing resident, the higher your rent, because you pay 30% of your income in rent. That means if your rent goes up, your income goes up, your rent goes up. Who in his right mind in the private market would ever sign a lease like that? But we subject the poorest tenants to that. Change that, let them have a flat rent. The money they might have paid because their income was going to put that in a savings account so that after the time is up, they're ready to move on. So we got to change the rules the way we did with welfare, 5-year limit we did on welfare in 1996. It worked. We need to do the same thing for housing subsidies, which are much bigger right now than cash welfare.
Very good. Howard Husak, he's a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. His new book, The Projects, A New History of Public Housing, particularly salient given mayors like Brandon Johnson and Zoran Mamdani these days. The Projects, A New History of Public Housing. Howard Husak, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure, Dan. Stay on for me if you can afterwards.
Sure deal. And Howard Husak joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer
Hallelujah! Holy
on AM 560.
Where's the Tylenol?
The Answer.
Are you a small business with just a couple of computers? Or maybe 50? Then listen up, because your business deserves the same protection and support the big guys get. Small businesses are the backbone of our country, and they're often overlooked. Not with Turnkey. We're entirely focused on the small business community. For 30 years, our multi-generational family-run IT company has been the trusted technical partner for small businesses just like yours. We're not some giant monolithic faceless corporation. We're local, we're personal, and we're passionate about helping small businesses thrive. From advanced backup, antivirus, and anti-ransomware to help desk support that actually helps, we've got your back. And right now, we're offering new customers a powerful firewall router, a local and cloud backup device, plus your first month of service absolutely free. Because at our core, we believe small businesses deserve big protection. At Turnkey, we're champions of small business. So visit us at turnkey.pro. That's turnkey.pro.
We've all been there. It's the opening night of the school play, or it's the piano or dance recital, or maybe it's the Christmas pageant at your church. And everyone's fumbling with their phones, leaning and straining to get the perfect snapshot of that special moment. And too often, the images come out blurry, crooked, or overexposed. For the big events in the life of your church or school, trust Tom Killoran Photography. This locally owned family business can provide the solutions you need for your important event photography. They've worked with dance studios, orchestras, and sports teams to capture those memorable moments that you want to last a lifetime. And they can do the same for you and your organization. Tom Killoran Photography is also the official photographer for AM 560 The Answer. To learn more and to see their portfolio, just visit KilloranPhotography.com. That's KILLORAN photography.com, or call them at 708-361-0025. Tom Killoran Photography, capturing important life moments for over 30 years.
Listen, I'm going to be straight with you. Pain just doesn't hurt your body. It steals your life. I know because I've seen it with people I care about, and maybe you're dealing with it right now. Here's what I love about Dr. Ashley Caravelli and QC Kinetics. They get it. They're not pushing surgery. They're not handing out pills. They're using your body's own healing power to fix what's broken. This is cutting edge. I've talked to people who've been through this. These are real results. No going under the knife, no medication fog, no sitting on the couch recovering, just your body doing what it was designed to do, heal itself. QC Kinetics gives you long-term relief. Make 2026 the year you get back to living without pain. They've got weekend appointments, free consultations, and you can use your HSA or FSA spending accounts. Your first consultation is free, so don't hesitate to call to find out more. Call 312-827-6261. Again, 312-827-6261. One more time, that number is 312-827-6261.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by extending their wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows for only $14.98. It gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more, or multi-use pillows for only $9.98. Get body pillows for $29.98 with a free pillowcase. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY Liberty to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including the standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. That's 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. Order $100 or more and your order ships absolutely free. We know MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but MyPillow has just announced that they are extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026.
The Lutheran Life Communities Foundation supports spiritual care at our 4 retirement communities. Our full-time chaplains provide Christian support as older people journey through the aging process. Through assisted living, memory care, nursing, and rehab, our chaplains walk the path with your loved ones. Please support our 130-year mission with your offering today. Visit LutheranLifeCommunities.org today. That's LutheranLifeCommunities.org. Find out how you can help.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:08, Ilhan Omar says Somalis aren't going anywhere. President Trump has some say about that. We'll discuss with John Hindraker from Powerline Blog at 8:08. It's now 8 o'clock at AM 560 WIND.
It's back to court this hour for Luigi Mangione. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. For a pretrial hearing that could last several days in New York City, where he's jailed, charged with murder in the shooting last year, killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a Manhattan hotel.
Attorneys for Luigi Mangione are back in court in New York today to argue the notebook found in his backpack upon arrest should not be allowed in at trial. This is the notebook that allegedly contained hostile writings about the healthcare industry and other executives, as well as what investigators said was evidence of a plan to eventually commit an act of violence.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. It's day 3 of the manhunt for a quadruple murderer in California who shot up a birthday party Saturday night, killing 4 people, injuring 11.
Gunfire erupted at a banquet hall in Stockton around 6 in the evening. The victims range in age from 8 to 21 years old. Investigators are working to figure out a motive. Crime Stoppers is offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Fox's Alicia Cunha. Another weekend of talks between the U.S. and Ukraine on a peace plan trying to stop Russia's war. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called it very productive. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff goes to Moscow today for more talks with Russia. Republican Senator Tom Cotton tells Fox.
They should make it clear that President Trump means business. We're continuing to arm Ukraine through NATO. We've imposed sanctions on 2 major Russian oil companies.
President Trump acknowledges he did have a phone call with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, but would not say if it was a good or bad discussion. As the U.S. military operation continues off the Venezuelan coast, blowing up more boats suspected of trafficking illegal drugs. Fox's Gernal Scott reports.
The top members of the House Armed Services Committee said they will join their Senate counterparts to call for a full accounting of the recent strikes on Venezuelan boats. They want the Office of Legal Counsel to provide the justification for it.
Now, some lawmakers say a report about one boat could amount to a war crime, with a second alleged strike killing survivors of the first bombing. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth denies that. America's listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with
Good morning. It is 23 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560, The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Illinois will not be adopting the new federal, quote, no tax on tips provision, meaning tipped workers in the state will still owe Illinois income tax on those tips, even when the tips are exempt at the federal level. Katrina Barker has a story.
Manish Bhatt, senior policy analyst with the Tax Foundation, says Illinois' tax structure makes it possible for the state to decline the new tip exemption.
Generally, only those states that begin state-level income tax calculations using the federal definition of taxable income have it automatically incorporated into the tax code. I don't believe Illinois does that.
Even for states that do automatically conform to the federal tax changes, Bhatt says it may be wiser to decouple from the federal rule.
It's much more sound tax policy to not create carve-outs for certain taxpayers at the expense of others.
The son of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is set to appear in a Chicago courtroom later today. Federal prosecutors say they will not be seeking the death penalty in return for Joaquin Guzman Lopez changing his plea plead to guilty. A second son of El Chapo, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, had pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges this past summer. And travelers at the end of the Thanksgiving holiday were finding hundreds of flights delayed and canceled in Chicago yesterday following a winter storm, which blanketed the Midwest while a wintry mix of rain and snow developed in the Northeast. Last night, a ground stop was issued at Midway Airport after a Southwest airliner skidded off the runway and into a grassy area. There were no reports of any injuries. This report is a service of Goldilocks, offering Chicagoland state-of-the-art smart security systems to protect your home or business. AM 560 listeners receive 3 months of monitoring free with new installs. Get peace of mind by calling Goldilocks at 708-889-5600. Again, that's 708-889-5600. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Airbus says the vast majority of the software and hardware fixes to its A320 narrow-body jets have been completed. Only about 100 planes still need to be modified. Regulators discovered that intense solar radiation corrupted data used for flight controls on an Airbus jet operated by JetBlue in October. The Cancun, Mexico to Newark flight briefly lost altitude, and it was forced to land in Florida. Reuters is reporting that Airbus has discovered a separate issue impacting fuselage panels on A320 planes. It's delaying some deliveries of new planes, but there's no indication it has reached aircraft that are now in service. There is merger news. British-based snack brand Graze has been sold to Katya's International. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Get ready for a musical journey like no other when the Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Chicago on December 26th on their The Ghost of Christmas Eve 2025 tour. Enter to win tickets and the grand prize of a 75-inch TV, a home stereo system, and a $1,000 gift card. Enter today at 560theanswer.com/TSO.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Huber, co-founder and developer of Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. From all of us at Virago, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy New Year. To our incredible 560 AM listeners, we want to say thank you for your support this year. It has meant the world to us. And we want you to celebrate, cherish these moments, and most importantly, be safe and healthy. The H3N2 variant is on the horizon, and we want you to be ready. Don't wait until it's too late. Be prepared. Protect your family during this holiday season. Stay healthy with Virago, and Merry Christmas.
Flu season is here. Boost your immune system with Virago and protect yourself. Order your bottle of Virago online today. Visit myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30% at checkout. That's myvirago.com.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
At Signature Bank, going the distance for business banking customers is what we do every day. We understand that business owners have a strategic mission, a drive to succeed, a plan for growth, and don't have time to wait for a bank to respond. With Signature Bank, you not only have a banking partner that has roots right here in Chicago, but our decisions are made locally too. Signature Bank knows that when you have a question or problem about your business, you want answers. You need someone who will pick up the phone or respond to your text. You need someone who is always there for you. That's Signature Bank. We are a team that wants to get to know you and your business. Want to be Signature Bank's next success story? Give us a call today at 773-467-5630 or visit us online at signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Just how good is Pure Talk's current deal for unlimited wireless? Well, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Because right now, for just $29.95 a month, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for life. Not your phone's life, your life.
This is Pure Talk's top-tier plan. It comes with a crazy fast 5G network along with a 30-gig hotspot. And at just $29.95 a month, there has never been a better opportunity to lock in a ridiculously low rate for as long as you live. And save thousands and thousands of dollars along the way. This plan is normally $65 a month, but if you switch today, you will save over 50% every single month for the rest of your life. See what I mean? It really is the deal of your lifetime. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. Offer ends 12/7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com.
Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
From the Team Hartburg Traffic Center, we've got issues around the area. 30-minute delay if you're Veterans Memorial northbound between Roosevelt before Lake Street. An accident's reduced the road to one lane. Traffic getting through in the left lane, so watch there. Solid traffic on the Reagan Memorial Tollway. That's eastbound between Orchard and Randall Road due to an accident blocking the left lane there. It is stop and go on the Eisenhower inbound between Church and York Road. An accident blocking the left lane, about a 20-minute delay. Also 20 minutes if you're Kennedy outbound between 90 and O'Hare. The Dan Ryan Express lane's got some issues inbound between 51st and Stevenson. On the Bishop Ford, it is slow going if you're inbound between Stony, Island Feeder, and the Dan Ryan. DuSable Lakeshore northbound stacked between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood. And delays on the trains continue. Metro Milwaukee North Line and the West Line. Mechanical issues and vehicles stuck on the tracks. This report is service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now, check out the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with mostly cloudy skies. Expect a light dusting to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and walkways, potentially impacting travel. The high temperature will reach 29. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The reaction from the left to both that expose on Somali immigrant fraud in the state of Minnesota that was done over at City Journal, Manhattan Institute. Very, very good. New York Times did as well, but I thought the City Journal piece was more comprehensive, unsurprisingly. The reaction to that, combined with the reaction from the same cohort of leftists to the shooting of the two National Guardsmen the Wednesday before Thanksgiving last week. Typical. Strident, separatist, identitarian. Before the shooting of those National Guardsmen, Brotherly Love Spice of the Socialist Spice Girls, Ilhan Omar, had this response to President Trump moving to rescind temporary protected status for Somali migrants in places like Mogadishu, Minnesota.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
Well, those that are here only through temporary protected status may be going somewhere, despite what the good representative has to say. And by the way, in terms of whether or not they're a net positive in Minnesota, obviously you have the layers of fraud detailed in that City Journal report. You also have this, say, don't take it from me, taken from more than 400 employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services, who posted essentially an open repudiation of Governor Jazz Hands there, Tim Walz, in which they say Walz is, quote, 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard the audit findings and guidance. More than 400 employees in Tim Walz's administration in the Department of Human Services in Minnesota. Well, that's interesting. And in terms of the reaction from some of Ilhan Omar's fellow travelers, like fake eyelashes by Jasmine Crockett, this is her response to the murder of one National Guardsman and the attempted murder of another. This is her hot take.
Ultimately, there were issues with literally, like, I won't get so graphic, but involving urine and some other things.
Feel free to get graphic.
Well, I mean, there were allegations that because they were actually depriving them of water, that they literally were having to drink their own urine. This can't be America. But obviously, in Trump's America, this is exactly what he wants. And the idea that one person can get out of line and commit such a horrific crime as shooting two National Guardsmen that never, ever asked to be here. In fact, we know the young lady that lost her life, specifically, we're saying that this is a waste of time. But now you want to go against every single immigrant. That doesn't make sense. And it's frankly not who we are, because if that's the case, let's talk about the white supremacists and how many of them need to be kicked out of this country, because I can guarantee you I can track down more crimes that they've committed, because overall immigrants have a lower crime committal rate than white supremacists. But we don't want to talk about that in this country.
So the response to the murder of a National Guardsman and the attempted murder of another is they shouldn't have been in D.C. Oh, by the way, the crackdown on people in this country illegally is resulting in allegedly resulting in illegal immigrants drinking their own urine. Of course, no detailed substantiation required when you're on MSNBC or one of these cable networks. And that you want to deport people in this country illegally, well, then I'm going to round up white supremacists, and then we'll compare and contrast the relative number of felonies committed, and we'll deport white supremacists and not illegal immigrants, something along those lines. Fascinating. Wajahat Ali, he's a Pakistani by extraction. Born in this country, though. Pakistani parents. Doesn't like this country much, though. Certainly not in his current formation, but he's looking forward to a brighter day in the near future. Take a listen to his reaction to the pause on basically stamping Afghan refugee applications for asylum, and those applications from individuals from another 12.5 countries.
Now it's on you. You want to blame all Afghans for this crime? Okay, using your logic, deport all white men. Sorry, white men are the problem. Number one mass shooters, white men. Sorry, your rules.
Okay, all right. So now it's not just white supremacists. He saw Jasmine Crockett's white supremacists, and he raised her all honky men in the country. Because if you deport the people here illegally, or remove temporary protected status for Somalis, or pause asylum applications.
So we're not going away, and if we do get sent away, literally your whole country will become the United States of America. It will sink. The rest...
Because he's got a message for you honkies out there.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. And I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm not even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, you know, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel Motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry-ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better-looking women.
That's the sort of deep thinking that earned you a spot as a New York Times op-ed contributor, Wajahat Ali. Okay, just a reminder of what we are up against here. That's the left's offerings in response to massive fraud committed by hundreds of Somali nationals in Minnesota, some permanent residents, some American citizens, some temporary protected status, some probably here illegally. And, of course, the targeted killing and attempted killing of National Guardsmen in D.C. on Wednesday. For more on this, pleased to be joined by John Hindraker. He is the president of the Center for the American Experiment and a contributor of Powerline blog, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always great to be with you, Dan.
Well, where to begin? Well, I guess in your home state of Minnesota there, interesting to see the revolt coming from within the Walz administration with respect to that the layers of fraud committed on Minnesota taxpayers and American taxpayers, where we all got together and provided a revenue stream for al-Shabaab and perhaps other terrorist organizations in Africa.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Dan, because, you know, there was nothing new in that City Journal article. If you lived in Minnesota, every word of it, it's like, yeah. You know, my organization has been writing about the Feeding Our Future fraud in particular for years. I mean, years. We put on 4 webinars in the last 2 years on Feeding Our Future. And there have been, I think, 78 people prosecuted. I think all but one of them, maybe Somalis, certainly overwhelming majority Somalis, resulting in criminal convictions. This has been going on for years, and the national press until now has treated it as a local crime story, which means they don't have to report on it. And what's happened is, after that City Journal piece, which basically said things that we've been saying here in Minnesota for a long, long time, President Trump then started tweeting about it. And that made it a national news story, and outlets like the New York Times, which had studiously ignored it up until now, even though the assistant U.S. attorney who's prosecuted these frauds has said publicly more than once, we're talking about billions of dollars in stolen money. All of a sudden, you now have outlets like the New York Times who think that they need to cover the story because everybody now knows about it, you know, and also maybe this is the intriguing local angle, Dan. Maybe they're trying to drive Tim Walz out of the 2026 race for governor.
Yeah. I mean, that's the New York Times reporting on this the way that it did. I looked at that with the jaundiced eye too. They want him to be pushed off of the stage with respect to certainly 2028. And maybe the way to do that is to try to push him out before he runs for re-election.
Well, the governor's race in Minnesota, you know, the statewide offices are in the off-year elections, right? So Walz was re-elected in 2022. He's announced that he's running for a third term in 2026. No Minnesotan has ever had 3 terms as governor. They're hard to get. And I think a lot of people in the Democratic Party would like to see Walz quietly take a walk.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have the same thing here with Pritzker, although we don't have the same level of revolt going on, and we're not getting any help from the New York Times, at least not yet. But, you know, hope springs eternal. So what is the situation there on the ground after Jacob Fry's re-election? Apparently, his Somali impersonations were better than the authentic Somali Omar Fateh. But and the fallout from more attention here, combined with Trump's rescinding TPS, what kind of impact will that have on Minnesota? Because I don't really have an idea. Maybe the federal government does either. How many Somali migrants are there only because of TPS?
Well, it's a small number, Dan. I mean, it's a few hundred in Minnesota, and it's fewer than 1,000 nationally. So getting rid of TPS is not going to have any perceptible impact, although it's got, you know, some symbolic value. Trump has promised to take a number of actions, some of which he can certainly do. You know, he says he's going to pause migration from all third world countries indefinitely. Well, he can do that. There's a very strong U.S. Supreme Court decision that came out during his first term talking about the very broad authority that Congress has given the president to make decisions about immigration and to exclude any group of aliens he wants to exclude anytime he thinks it's in the public interest. So I think going forward, we may see some significant changes in that regard. Now, if you look specifically at the Somali population here in Minnesota, which is somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000, nobody really knows. It hasn't really been counted. The large majority, I believe, are American citizens, either born here or naturalized. And if you look at the people who have been convicted in the Feeding Our Future fraud, which are, you know, more than 70, again, the large majority of them are actually American citizens. And so Trump has also talked about denaturalization. You know, if you're a naturalized citizen, you can be denaturalized, and the grounds for that are actually quite broad. If you turn out not to be of good moral character, or if it turns out that you are not attached to the U.S. Constitution, in theory, you could be denaturalized. And so some people are going to say, well, how about Ilhan Omar, for example?
Yeah, and well, I mean, I don't know if we want to get into that business, but it's very tempting. Ilhan Omar, Wajahat Ali, you just heard from, pretty tempting, isn't it? These identitarians. But I mean, once you sort of draw a line at Ilhan Omar, there's going to be a lot of people on the wrong side of that line, and it's, I don't know. To some extent, I find Ilhan Omar and Jasmine Crockett particularly useful. I want them to continue talking because, I mean, if that's the future of that party, then, well, the choice is very clear for Americans, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be a good idea politically to go after somebody like Ilhan Omar. I don't think it would be. On the other hand, you know, some of these people that have been convicted of crimes, for example, if they did a few denaturalizations, you got to do them one at a time. It's never going to be a large-scale solution, right?
Right.
But it might not be a bad idea to do a few, just kind of as a shot across the bow.
You wrote about this a little bit, too, at Powerline blog. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to opine. But as we're talking a lot about immigration policy, one of the things that's left out of our conversation about those National Guardsmen who were shot is violence as the means to political ends for the men and women on the left. And this is another illustration of it.
Yeah, I mean, when people on the left constantly are talking about ICE as Trump's Gestapo and attacking the National Guardsmen that Trump has deployed to certain cities to try to maintain the peace, and it's this constant drumbeat of extreme language. You know, Trump's a Nazi, Trump's a fascist, Trump is Hitler, ICE is Gestapo. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You know, some people are going to take that language seriously, and attacks on law enforcement, in particular ICE, but I think more broadly law enforcement, are up by over 1,000% since Trump has taken office. And I think a significant factor there is the extreme language that we are seeing from the Democratic Party.
Well, and it's an appeal to their base. I mean, you remember that piece, I think it was Axios, where you had unnamed members of Congress. This is a few months back. Unnamed members of Congress saying, literally our constituents want us to fight Trump and risk, physical harm in order to do so. That's how intense is the position of the base of that party. The demonization over the course of the last decade has worked, and now it may consume some of their own, but the base doesn't care. I mean, that's what happens when you spark this sort of neo-Jacobin sentimentality.
No, I think that's right. I think that Antifa has become the militant arm of the Democratic Party in much the same way as the Ku Klux Klan was the militant arm of the Democratic Party in the latter part of the 19th century.
Yeah, identitarians repeating themselves. John Hinderaker, President and Center of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Dan.
And John joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Everyone's heard of Minnesota Nice, state residents' reputation for being polite, mild-mannered, and tolerant. So it's hard to believe Minnesota taxpayers have become a major funder of a terrorist group. But it's true. A massive welfare fraud scheme took millions meant for Minnesotans and funneled the money to a Somalian branch of al-Qaeda. Minnesota's seen the rapid growth of a Somali migrant community over the past 3 decades. Many send money home. In 2023 alone, transfers to Somalia totaled $1.7 billion, more than Somalia's national budget. What's more, Somali-based gangs in Minnesota have become a serious public safety threat, deeply involved in violent crime. In short, a state once known for being nice is grappling with some serious problems. There's a heavy cost when America encourages immigration but refuses to insist on assimilation.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-515-1865. 800-515-1865. 800-515-1865.
Hello? Sir, this is Officer Peterson. There's been a string of break-ins in the area, and your office, it was hit. Hit? What do you mean? We were robbed? Looks like the back door lock was easily pried open, and they moved through the building like they knew exactly what to take. We see wires everywhere. No computers. What? No computers? I just upgraded everything. Looks like they moved fast. We only found out because a neighboring business had their alarm go off. Do you have any security cameras?
No. Nothing.
Don't wait until it's too late. Goldilocks protects Chicagoland businesses with custom security solutions. From reinforced commercial doors with keyless entry to cameras and 24/7 monitoring that alerts authorities immediately. Schedule a free on-site assessment at GoldilocksInc.com. Again, that's GoldilocksInc.com. Plus, AM 560 listeners get their first 3 months of monitoring free with a new install. Call 708-889-5600. That's 708-889-5600. Goldilocks, Chicago's premier locksmith doors and security systems company since 1981.
AM 560. The Answer.
Coming up at 8:38, we'll talk crime and punishment with the Manhattan Institute's Rafael Mangual. That's 8:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 23 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560, The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. One person is dead following a shooting last night in the Bronzeville neighborhood. According to reports, 3 people were inside a vehicle when 3 other people approached them, one of those pulling out a handgun and began firing shots. Police say an 18-year-old male was killed, 2 others inside the car, a 20-year-old man and woman. Both suffered gunshots to their legs. There are no suspects in custody at this time. Another smash and grab robbery has been reported, this time thieves targeting the Express Food Mart on Devon Avenue in Rogers Park. Authorities say the robbers used a large rock to break the store's glass door open and then took off with a lottery machine and a stash of tickets that were worth about $7,000, all within 30 seconds. Police are continuing to investigate. And incoming Chief Judge Charles S. Beach II will be sworn in this morning. Illinois Supreme Court Chief Justice P. Scott Neville will be administering the oath of office. This news update is delivered to you by Quick Delivery Service. Visit quickdelivery.com when you need same-day delivery. Local delivery when you need it from safe, licensed professionals. Go to quickdelivery.com now to schedule your delivery. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Larry Elder explains the real Obamacare.
We were told over and over and over again that Obamacare was going to bend the cost curve down. And people are paying more for their premiums. Co-pays are higher. Deductibles are higher. Cost is higher. For people that get coverage through their employer, it's higher. Individual, it's higher. It's made things worse.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
Dan Proft here to tell you about an opportunity for you to promote your business and to make a difference this Christmas season. I'm talking about our Food for the Poor Business Benefactor Program. We've partnered with Food for the Poor to provide life-saving food and water for thousands of children and their families in Latin America and the Caribbean. Your business can be a part of this effort. Become a Food for the Poor business benefactor by making a $2,500 tax-deductible donation to Food for the Poor. That donation will help more than 30 children for an entire year. And when you do that, AM 560 will give you 40 one-minute commercials to air here on AM 560 The Answer between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday at no additional cost to you. To take advantage of this deal, just call John Gallagher at 847-472-8950. Again, that's 847-472-8950. One more time, the number, 847-472-8950. Or go to 560theanswer.com/food for the poor. That website again, 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are high interest payments becoming too much to bear? Luckily, there's a way for consumers struggling with over $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans to significantly reduce the amount they owe if they qualify. Qualifying for this debt relief program, which the credit card companies prefer to keep secret, will only require you to pay back a fraction of what you owe with one affordable monthly payment. You don't have to file bankruptcy or need a debt consolidation loan. Consumers can now take advantage of this financial debt relief during the current economic downturn and rising inflation. If you owe $10,000 or even $500,000 in credit card debt or personal loans, call the Debt Relief Advocates Helpline now for this free information and to see if you qualify. Call 800-524-8986. 800-524-8986. Again, that's 800-524-8986.
Get 2 mattresses for the price of 1.
Whoa, what are you doing?
We don't do sales at Penny Mustard.
I know.
So how can we offer 2 mattresses for the price of 1?
Because with a flippable, 2-sided foam or coil mattress from Penny Mustard, it's like having 2 mattresses for the price of 1.
You'll give each side more time to breathe.
And your mattress will last twice as long.
See? 2 for 1.
2-sided mattresses. Available every day at Penny Mustard Furnishings.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Whether you are old or young, no one likes to lose money. The market is at an all-time high. How much risk does your portfolio really have in it? Are you worried that you could lose your hard-earned money? Call TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights at 800-640-2256 for your free risk report. Call right now and we will include a full analysis of your portfolio. Don't wait until it's too late. Call TJ Stearns, a local and longtime sponsor on AM 560. Call 800-640-2256. Call now and tell him AM 560 sent you.
In the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, we've got delays all over the area. We'll start with some of the bigger issues on the Eisenhower. Inbound between Des Plaines and Ashland, about a 25-minute backup. An accident on the left shoulder of the Jane Addams eastbound between Route 31 and before Higgins Road. Watch for about a 20-minute delay there. The Dan Ryan Express lanes inbound. Traffic still creeping along between 51st and Stevenson Expressway exit. You are tapping the brakes if you're Kennedy outbound between 90 and the O'Hare Airport. Also inbound Kennedy between Pulaski and Division, about a 20-minute delay there. The Reagan Memorial Tollway. Slow traffic on the ramp to the northbound Tri-State if you're eastbound between Midwest and the Tri-State Tollway exit. And delays continue on the trains, especially Metro Milwaukee North Line near Edgebrook, about a 30-minute delay. This report sponsored by AT&T. Connecting changes everything this holiday season at AT&T. Learn how to get the all-new iPhone 17 Pro on them with eligible iPhone trade-in. Any condition requires trade-in of the iPhone 14 Pro Max or higher. Excludes iPhone 16e. Terms and restrictions apply, subject to change. Visit att.com/iPhone for details. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now check out the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be cold with plenty of clouds leading to a coating to an inch of snow later this afternoon. The snow may create slippery roads and sidewalks impacting travel. Expect a high of 29. Tonight, anticipate on and off snow and flurries in the evening, adding up to a coating to an inch of accumulation. Otherwise, it will remain cloudy and cold with a total snowfall of 1 to 3 inches from the storm. The low will be 17. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. If you think that JB and BJ would respond to the horrific crime committed against Bethany McGee, the young woman that was nearly burned alive on the Blue Line. If you think that would generate a response where we're going to bring overwhelming force to CTA platforms to ensure that people are safe on the trains and there's a very public display to disincentivize would-be predators from committing violent crimes on mass transit. You know, you did do something to sort of consummate the billion-dollar bailout that Illinois provided for Chicago mass transit. If you thought that's what would happen, you're wrong. Hate to break it to you. I'm sure it comes as a real surprise. For example, cops seek 3 in Thanksgiving Day stabbing and robbery aboard the Red Line. 11:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving, a group boarded the rail car, confronted a 48-year-old man, demanded his belongings. One pulled out a knife. A struggle erupted, leaving the victim with a stab wound to his back before attackers fled with his property. Mm-hmm. But don't fret, because Jelly Belly last week said in response to that horrific crime against Bethany McGee, you know, this idea of releasing repeat violent offenders pending a trial for a felony so they can go around and commit other felonies, maybe I'm willing to take a look at the Safety Act.
Of course, if there are changes that need to be, look, we do this all the time in Springfield, right? Where there are laws that have been on the books for 20 years that need tweaking because there's something that somebody missed in the original, writing of it. And so always willing to look at that. I can't speak to the specifics of that case that you're raising, but just to say, of course, and I've said this about the Safety Act before, and about really every bill that gets passed in Springfield. Sometimes bills get passed and everybody that votes for it knows that there needs to be a trailer bill or a tweak that needs to be made afterward. So I think everybody is open to listening to what changes might need to be made.
Right. After he called people who oppose the Safety Act liars and fearmongers. This can't be said enough. after he promised this would be the result of the Safety Act.
All Illinoisans will live in a safer and more just state with this law on the books.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, electronic monitoring that's operated out of the Cook County Chief Judge's office has been a catastrophe, too. Even the Chicago Tribune has come to admit the November 17th horror on that blue line, Bethany McGee being lit on fire, was preventable. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So are most of the crimes that we report here. Most of the crimes committed, of course, they're preventable, because it's a small group of people that commit a preponderance of the violent crime, and this is a state whose chosen political leadership is not serious about removing them from society. I can't wait to see what turns up with respect to that firefighter who got carjacked right outside the fire station. That's how brazen the predator set is these days. They know, and they've known for a long time, because it's been this way for a long time, that law enforcement is on its heels at the direction of the chosen political leadership for the city and the state. That's the fact, Jack. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Rafael Mangual. Rafael is with the Manhattan Institute, where he is a senior fellow and head of research for policing and for the Policing and Public Safety Initiative. He's also the author of the book Criminal Injustice: What the Push for Mass Decarceration and Depolicing Gets Wrong and Who It Hurts Most. Rafael, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back, Dan.
So, the predictable results of no cash bail that we've talked about before on this show, and we've talked about in the context of New York as well, continue to pile up.
They do. They do. It's almost as if somebody could have predicted that this was going to go south.
Yeah. And just refresh our recollections here, too. We've emphasized this, and there was a piece in City Journal last week about the, it was about James Q. Wilson's work, and just again the percentage, or even the aggregate number of people responsible for an inordinate number of amount of crime. And for example, something in New York City, I'm going from memory now, but something like literally like 300 people in a city of 8 million were responsible for a preponderance of the retail theft.
Yeah. I think it was like 357 people had amassed more than 6,000 arrests just for retail theft in New York City alone, which was a massive share of the total arrests made for that one offense category. And that's just something that's true in every city in America. I mean, crime is a problem for everyone, but it is a problem that is driven by a very, very small group of very, very high-rate offenders. And this is the thing that I hope will finally get people comfortable with the idea of putting repeat offenders behind bars for good long periods of time, which is that you don't need, quote-unquote, mass incarceration in order to make a big dent. Right? I mean, when you realize that crime is driven by a relative handful of individuals in a given city, you start to understand that actually just by putting the people who continue to commit offenses in prison for a long time, you can make a massive difference without, sweeping everybody into the system. I mean, if you just look at gun violence, for example, whether you're talking about New York or Chicago, I mean, it's usually somewhere in the range of, less than 0.2% of the population that's responsible for a majority of the gun violence. And so, it's really just a matter of political will at this point. And unfortunately, in cities that are run by Democrats like J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, there doesn't seem to be that political will to do what needs to be done.
I want to get your reaction to this, too. There's a teen, what do they call it? The euphemism is a teen trend or teen takeover. So there was one the weekend before last on the occasion of the tree lighting ceremony downtown Chicago. And I don't know, 500, 600, 700 teens descended around State and Lake near the Chicago Theater. Fights broke out. 8 people were shot. 14-year-old was killed around the corner from that event. Doesn't matter. There was a huge police presence because of the huge number of spectators that came to see the tree lighting. Didn't matter. And one of the arguments that was made was for snap curfews. That was an ordinance proposed that was shot down by the Mayor Johnson and his allies in the city council. And you're getting from like government-funded media here, like WBEZ, which is the NPR station here, that what's really needed here is more investment in safe spaces for teens because they want to gather and socialize, and it's just a problem of safe spaces and thinking creatively about constructive environments for teens who want to meet up and socialize with one another. Is that what's needed? Is one more park or one more midnight basketball program?
It sounds to me like the local NPR affiliate there is openly admitting that downtown Chicago is unsafe, including for teenagers. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of what is inherently conducive to fights and shootings about the intersection of State and Lake. Right? I mean, it should be and has been one of the safest parts of the cities, right? What made it unsafe had nothing to do with the environment and everything to do with the people who were in that environment, right? I mean, none of the teenagers who attended the tree lighting along Michigan with their parents and families broke out into sudden fits of violence. None of them pulled firearms and started firing at their rivals indiscriminately with no regard for who they might hit. Right? This is a gargantuan effort to avoid what is obviously a cultural problem, a discrete cultural problem with a discrete subset of the city's population. And no amount of quote-unquote investments or programming is going to get you around the fact that you have a relative handful of very violent people who subscribe to a violent ideology that elevates guns and fists as the sort of primary means of acquiring respect and settling disputes. And until that changes, we are going to continue to see problems like what we saw at the tree lighting in Chicago.
I mean, just back to the prosecution and incarceration piece of it. In this piece about James Q. Wilson's work, there was reference to a Swedish research paper that found that violent crime would fall nearly 80% if perpetrators could be prevented from reoffending after their first conviction, would fall by half if they were fully incapacitated after their third. So the author here, concentrated is violent crime among a profoundly antisocial few that making even a 10th violent conviction punishable by life without parole would cut overall violent crime by 20%. Can you imagine that? You have 9 chances, and your 10th, you're in prison for life. That would cut violent crime by 20%, according to this research.
That's exactly right. And it makes perfect sense when you realize the typical person who ends up in prison here in the United States is someone who has between 10 and 12 prior arrests and 5 and 6 prior convictions. And then consider that almost all of them, more than 95% of the people who enter prison every year, are going to be released at some point in their lifetimes. And almost all of them, right around 83%, are going to reoffend at least once over the following 10 years of their release. So, again, this is by and large a self-inflicted wound. I mean, the people who we need to get off the street are not difficult to identify. They are telling us who they are through repeated episodes of criminal conduct that make very, very clear that they are not going to follow the law, that they are going to continue to pursue a criminal lifestyle. And at some point, it really is on us to make the choice to say, okay, we believe you now, and away you go. This discomfort with recognizing the incorrigibility of certain offenders really needs to go, because at the end of the day, it doesn't impact us all equally, right? I mean, what we saw at the tree lighting was, downtown Chicago just getting a little taste of what is, part of everyday life in neighborhoods like Inglewood and Austin and, West Garfield Park. But that is something that is a feature of daily life in some of America's most impoverished neighborhoods. And if the people who, really swear to us that they care about the disadvantaged and the people who have suffered from disinvestment, if they were really, really honest, then they would actually do something. They would take the people who are predators off the street and allow these neighborhoods to finally get the room to breathe, so that they can grow and so that the kids living there can feel like they have other options. And that's really at the core of this sort of opportunity problem that they want to recraft this as.
Rafael Mangual, Senior Fellow, Head of Research for the Manhattan Institute's Policing and Public Safety Initiative. He's also the author of the book Criminal Injustice, What the Push for Mass Decarceration and Depolicing Gets Wrong and Who It Hurts Most. Rafael, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Be well.
You too, and Rafael Mangual joined us at the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by extending their wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows for only $14.98. It gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more, or multi-use pillows for only $9.98. Get body pillows for $29.98 with a free pillowcase. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including the standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. That's 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. Order $100 or more and your order ships absolutely free. We know MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but MyPillow has just announced that they are extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026.
Listen, I'm going to be straight with you. Pain doesn't just hurt your body. It steals your life. I know because I've seen it with people I care about. Maybe you're dealing with it right now. Here's what I love about Dr. Ashley Caravelli and QC Kinetics. They get it. They're not pushing surgery. They're not handing out pills. They're using your body's own healing power to fix what's broken. This is cutting edge. I've talked to people who've been through this. These are real results. No going under the knife, no medication fog, no sitting on the couch recovering, just your body doing what it was designed to do, which is heal itself. QC Kinetics gives you long-term relief. Make 2026 the year you get back to living without pain. They've got weekend appointments and free consultations, and you can use your HSA or FSA spending accounts. Your first consultation is free, so don't hesitate to call to find out more. The number, 312-827-6261. Again, call 312-827-6261. Once more, that number, 312-827-6261.
The biggest time of the year for stores is during the Christmas season. And if you deal in collector coins, the main source for inventory is from people like you. We want to have our showcases fully stocked before Christmas. Last Christmas, gold was the highest ever recorded in its 5,000-year run. We don't always know if precious metals will go up or down. We're saying that if you don't appreciate that collection Grandpa left, you may want to at least find out what you can get for it. Fox Valley Coins is the trusted place where people come to buy and sell their precious metals, rare coins, and paper money. We're especially interested in purchasing now through the first week of December. And we'll still be buying after we get back from the Christmas break, but we need to purchase now. Fox Valley Coins is located one light north of I-88 on Route 59 on the Naperville-Warrenville border. We'll be closed Christmas Eve through Monday, January 4th, celebrating Jesus' birth with family and for year-end inventory. Merry Christmas from Fox Valley Coins. Family-owned integrity since 1981. FoxValleyCoins.com.
Dan Proft here to tell you about our 2025 Food for the Poor campaign. If you've listened to this station and to our show for any length of time, then you already know about Food for the Poor. They are a nonprofit, faith-based organization that provides food, water, medicine, clothing, and life-saving supplies directly to local partners in Latin America and the Caribbean. We all know about how bad the situation is in Latin America and the Caribbean right now. Economic decline, political instability and corruption, and high food prices. The only thing standing between these families and starvation is Food for the Poor and their partners who are providing life-saving food relief on the ground. But in order to get food and water to those who need it most, Food for the Poor needs your help. Your gift of just $150 can provide food and water for 2 children for an entire year. For a gift of $300, you can provide food and water for 4 children for an entire year. To make a gift of any amount, just call 844-862-5787. 844-862-4673. That's 844-862-4673. Or visit 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
You know, nothing beats the comfort of a perfectly heated home.
And when it comes to heating your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Air Right Heating and Cooling is fast. When your furnace breaks down, they'll fix it right away.
Just like that. Big time results. No waiting around. You get the job done right. And let's face it, who doesn't love being warm, right? It's beautiful. When it's freezing, I crank up that amazing furnace. Burn, baby, burn. Trust me, you'll say, wow, I've never felt this warm in my life.
If you like keeping your hard-earned money, then contact Air Right Heating and Cooling. Tell them AM 560 sent you, and right now you'll receive $56 off any service.
Unbelievable.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling. Doing it right since 1959.
AM 560, The Answer.
Okay. I mean, still basking in that big Bears win. Litmus test to see if they're for real, and that was some smash mouth football. I mean, they ran right over the Eagles in Philadelphia. Pretty impressive. Another test this week in Green Bay. Dave Swirsky, of course, with the definitive musical summary of what transpired on Black Friday.
Bears, they won yet another game. Oh, this is for real. Bears, yes, they came to play. A win on Black Friday. Had a loss of what to say. This team just finds a way. This year's a good year to bleed or jam blue. They just keep making plays. Got us all believing more each day. 9-3. Can it be? The Bears won. I believe. A new dawn. We're finally gone.
Ooh, nice falsetto.
Been shirtless post-game. And this, my friends, just to give the hot dogs away. His post-game speeches keep me hyped for days. Now after me, good, better, best, I love this team, not sorry. 9-3. Can it be done?
And I really appreciate the 80s Take On Me, AHA parody song. Wonderful, as usual. Dave Swirsky. It's now 9 o'clock, AM 560 WND.
He's trying to get damning evidence to not be used against him. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. As Luigi Mangione sits in court this morning for the start of a several-day pretrial hearing in the murder case against him,